Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committees meeting for Wednesday, July 13, 2022. All council meetings will be live streamed on the city's website. Our first order of business is roll call. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Reverend Burgess, Mr. Coghill, Ms. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Kraus, Mrs. Kell Smith, Ms. Strasburger,
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Lavelle, Chair.
Here.
4 members.
Bruce is online.
There's Kraus is here. 5 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation which are or may be before city council, and profanity will not be permitted. After you are called, please restate your name and neighborhood for the record. Our first speaker is Naomi Mullen.
Good morning. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. Regarding the threat to fire and fine city workers, I suggest the following solution. Set up an anonymous online reporting of vaccine sickness. Respect the privacy of employees the way Duquesne Light does. They manage to keep the electricity on for us. Set up an anonymous reporting method. Do not fire well-trained individuals. If the vaccine letter that threatening that they either get a jab or they lose their job, that would have been under duress. Duquesne Light's attorneys must grasp the potential lawsuit for that. No wonder they set up an anonymous reporting system for COVID vaccine. Now, regarding Bon Air, my husband, Michael J. Mullen, who was one of the leaders in the community, died in January, and this was read at his funeral. And it was authored by Battalion Chief Douglas Praskovich. Retired Deputy Chief Mike Mullen touched the lives of many people. His uncompromising dedication to his sworn duty to provide for the safety of the citizens of Pittsburgh was truly exceptional and one that should be emulated by every firefighter. He loved sharing his knowledge of firefighting in all its many aspects to make our firefighters safer, smarter, and more efficient on the fire ground. Mike knew most of the firefighters on the entire Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire by their first name and was always approachable regardless of rank. If you had a question, he was up with you to answer it. He worked tirelessly, but also energetically his entire career in pursuit of more knowledge. His legacy will serve our citizens and firefighters for many years to come. Mike was a loving and compassionate husband, father, brother, relative, and friend. Michael J. Mullen lived a full life, as his obituary so accurately described. Mike was passionate, tireless, dedicated, highly conscientious, and caring. Well done, Michael. Well done. Rest in peace. We, the people of Bon Air, have maintained our properties and participated in many functions here. Our community made it extremely clear at our town hall meeting in May of 2021 that we oppose the detrimental property. Join our supporters, Mayor Gainey, Councilman Coghill, and State Representative Benham for the creation of a green space. The Michael Mullen Memorial Green Space is the solution for the peace, safety, and happiness of our community.
I didn't do that. Our next speaker is Jeremy Waldrop.
Good morning.
Council. My name is Jeremy Waldrop, I'm President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, representing downtown Pittsburgh. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of the amendment to Resolution 580 to adjust American Rescue Plan funding line, specifically in support of the effort to create a housing fund to support office space conversions in the Golden Triangle. The pandemic has changed many facets of our life, and none more significant than where and how we work. Virtual meetings and hybrid work experiences are likely here to stay, and with such radical changes comes the need to rethink downtown, a place historically dedicated to commercial offices. As the center of our region and an economic engine for southwestern Pennsylvania, downtown has remained overly reliant on commercial office for far too long. In fact, we rank 5th in the country in this category, with 66% of downtown real estate dedicated to office use. Additional residential growth presents an opportunity to create a more resilient neighborhood with active streets that can support a dynamic retail environment. The new fund, created in part with these funds, will support residential conversions of historic office buildings to residential in downtown. This fund will begin to counter declining office occupancy and utilization rates that threaten downtown vitality and will prevent further erosion of an important component of the region's property tax base. In an effort to support the high cost of building conversions, increase the supply of affordable workforce housing, and support the overall health and vitality of downtown Pittsburgh. We appreciate the leadership of the Gainey administration and the URA, as well as the support of County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, Senator Costa, and Senator Fontana, and hope that the council will support this important economic development tool in downtown's revitalization. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bill Schlatzner.
Good morning, council members. My name is Bill Schlachter. I am a longtime resident of Mount Washington. I've spoken to you all quite a number of times regarding this topic, which is the Airbnb ordinance. I'm calling to reiterate the need for an amendment regarding primary residence for anybody that has an Airbnb, and also to reconsider the use of a multi-unit for the Airbnb. I think if we look back at what happened on the north side, which was an unbelievable tragedy, and you ask yourself, if there was a primary residence there, if there was somebody living there, or it was somebody else's sort of extra unit in the back, would that tragedy have happened? And when we ask ourselves, when we look around the country, what has been the response of cities, great cities across the country, Nashville, Philadelphia, Denver, Seattle, what have they done to resolve this issue of Airbnb? Because it's not just a security issue. The issue also is an affordable housing issue. Because what is happening, like what happened at the Northside shooting, was that it was owned by a corporation that didn't even reside in the city limits. And the secondary effects of this as well is that corporations are buying up land, specifically buying up homes, taking them off the market from everyday homeowners to buy, and then also taking them away from a long-time rental. And that is not good for the city. And it is slowly starting to happen up here in Mount Washington. This is one of these issues where it is a frog sort of slowly boiling in the pot. And as leaders, I ask you to be proactive on this issue. Because it may not seem like a big issue today, but I guarantee you by the time many of you are up for re-election, this will become an even greater issue. This is a slow fuse that it is going to burn and is going to get worse. And that's why many cities across our country have put the primary amendment in there. And that is an extraordinarily important amendment to this. And I hope that you do the right thing as leaders and address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. That exhausts our list of registered speakers. Is there anyone with us in chambers wishing to speak? Please come forward. Provide your name and neighborhood for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Les Ludwig, Squirrel Hill. And I bring to you this morning the thinking of a number of people who I have the pleasure of living with. As you can see, I have my fishing expedition shirt on because we need a suggested solution for the shooting epidemic of our nation, which of course we've had 11 people killed at the synagogue. So number one, will most local governments join in asking President Joe Biden to impose a national state of emergency on the sale and/or delivery of high-capacity instruments of war to anyone other than by his orders until the end of his tenure and be automatically renewable unless challenged successfully in the Supreme Court of the United States. 2, that all shipments of parts, drawings for homemade guns, bullets, including rubber ones or any device that can be fired from such weapon, be forbidden and punishable by fines, incarceration, or death until the offender is too old to harm our society, as seen in the current outbreak of mass shootings. 3, that the NRA be divided structurally into 2 divisions, one for hunting equipment and one for equipment for warfare, high-capacity guns. 4, a new name for each division will serve the purpose of distinguishing the total difference in usage in each division. 5, if an attempt is made to break through the described division, it shall be punishable by as much as death and can only be changed from that type of decision by the United States Supreme Court. I hope that this promotes a better understanding of this horrific problem and that it seems to solve the objections that one would expect from the National Rifle Association. If anything, I think they'll take in more money by memberships in 2 divisions than 1. I thank you for your attention, and I hope that you'll pass it as a resolution that Pittsburgh can go on record as trying to bring sanity back to living in the United States. I have copies here. Madam Secretary, so that each person can have a copy, and hope that I will hear something interesting like a yes to this proposal. I thank you.
Thank you. Any additional speakers?
My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live at 715 Mercer Street. That's K.D. Irvis Tires. Yesterday, when the mayor was outside with the men for the baseball, for the children, Little League. Okay, I went and asked the mayor. I said, we don't have a bus coming from K.D. Irvis down to the bottom of the hill. We have to go all the way through town. That means that we are subjected to a lot of people. I'm talking about all the way through town to go back out to the bottom of the hill. I hadn't been coming because I do have health problems. But the young man, because I was pressing the mayor, he talking about, I can't do it. You can speak, you got a mouth. Okay, so then after we came in, there was a young man that had been out there with him. And so let me tell you how people look. He came and he said, Miss Brown, that's your mayor. You are to respect him. I said, what are you talking about? You pointed at him. Listen, let me tell you something. I went to college. I took public speaking. And with public speaking, we are taught that you're supposed to be talking to everybody, not just one person or looking at one person. And I'm animated. I do move my hands and stuff. For him to tell me that I can't point at him, I am 75 years old. Been coming down here since 1999. Every week. This was May of 1999, because I was looking at the papers, and I would go over to the school board, and we was fussing about fasting, and the little boy that this guard was taking in the room upstairs in the closet. They found him, with the little boy with his pants off. When I asked for, I went to the school board for him to have an open hearing because we wanted to know about our children. Well, the school board wouldn't do it. I went to him and I said, if we if we have a meeting, will you come? He said, yes, Ms. Brown, I would. Okay, so we're supposed to have the meeting, and Mr. O'Connor, well, I still can't forget that. He took him, he was going to have the meeting, and then he stopped it. He said, no, well, not because it's going to be, how he said something about hung jury, some kind of stuff. Anyway, he stopped the meeting. I found out he wasn't allowed to do that, but he did. So we never had the meeting with with Faison. Now, last night, I went over to county council, and I went there so that I could explain to them that we don't have a bus coming from the top of the hill, because I brought in petitions. I talked to Mr. Watson, Dwight Watson. I might be pronouncing his name wrong, but anyway, Dwight, you can know he's a big, huge man. Okay, so when John DeFazio was running for president again. Now, I found out he died, but but I wanted to say to the family that he did treat me fair. I had other things to say, but that's okay. My time is up. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak before council? Please come forward. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, that moves us to our standing committee's agenda. Our first committee of the day is Finance and Law, which is chaired by myself. Our first supplemental paper is Bill 586.
Bill 586, resolution authorizing the mayor to receive grant funding and technical assistance from cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, Inc. for the 2022 cohort of the Financial Empowerment Cities intended to create an Office of Financial Empowerment in the amount of $170,000 and authorizing expenditures for this stated purpose.
Motion to approve, brief discussion, please.
Second.
Discussion, Councilman Cross?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I'm missing this morning's agenda. I apologize for the late request. I do have all the amendments that have been offered, but I don't have the agenda to work off of. If you would please send it to me. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Will do.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 587.
Bill 587, resolution authorizing the mayor and the deputy chief of staff to receive grant funding from the Hines Endowment to hire an education coordinator for 24 months in the amount of $175,000 and authorizing expenditures.
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 588.
Bill 588, resolution authorizing the mayor and the city solicitor to enter into a professional services agreement with Meyer, Unkovich, and Scott, LLC, for expert legal services related to litigation in the United States District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
Motion to hold for executive session.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill will be held for executive session. Bill 589.
Bill 589, resolution providing for the mayor and director of the Department of Finance and/or the director of the Department of Public Works to enter into a lease or lease agreement, sublease or subleases for approximately 8,000 square feet from the leaseor, the Housing Authority of the city, for the purpose of providing office space for employees of the Department of Planning and the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspection, located within the City of Pittsburgh, 1st Ward at 100 Ross Street, effective on or about September 1, 2022, for a one-year period with an option to extend and providing for the payment thereof.
Motion to approve, discussion, please.
Second.
Second discussion, Councilman Cross?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. Who is here to speak to this morning, please?
Director Hornstein is.
Hi, Director. Good morning. I don't see you.
Oh, he's online, Councilman Kraus.
Yeah, hi, Director. I can't see you. Director, can you please help me understand? I don't see a cost associated with this. unless it's in paperwork that I haven't reviewed. For that, I'd apologize. But I'd like to know the cost associated with this and a better understanding as to why we would be moving employees into 100 Ross and not over to the new building.
Okay. So if you just give me 1 second, I'm going to get you more of the costing information to you. The background on this is we discovered in the end of April, the building property manager, informed us that the heating system for 100 Ross is in dire condition, or I'm sorry, for 200 Ross is in dire condition. Such that, when we reviewed it we went through a series of, and still going through a series of reviews with their technical people, our technical people, and the other property owners to make a determination about what kind of repairs we can effect. But it was our professional determination in Public Works that it's very likely that the heat, it's going to be a struggle to get the heating system up and running for staff that use 200 Ross. So we made a kind of an emergency decision to relocate the existing city staff that are reporting there. A lot were telework, but some still report. And now we put those folks in a variety of existing city facilities where we can. But there is kind of some outstanding folks that we could not find available space for. And so we are moving through that process right now. And we work with the Housing Authority, is the tenant of 100 Ross who kind of brought this opportunity to us. And it works for a lot of different levels. It's both time effective and cost effective. We're still working through the final lease price there, but this is a situation that gives us, safe space for our employees to meet while we resolve the 200 Ross issue.
Mm-hmm. And I support safe spaces for employees to work. I think that is indicative of the responsibility of council and the administration. I worry a little bit after not necessarily being prepared to proceed with the public safety facility. I see a second time now where we're perhaps not quite prepared to proceed with moving everybody into the new facility, and that we're continuing to allocate dollars to sort of mothball, if you will, some of the activities that need to take place while we ready the facilities that are already under construction or underway. Mm-hmm. I'd be lying to say I'm not concerned about that. I would really like to know what the cost associated with this. Forgive me, it is a 1 year that we're looking at of doing this?
Yes, so all of these folks, all of these folks are, scheduled to move to the 412. Right. The permits are currently under review with PLI for the renovation of the 412 Boulevard, of those city spaces. So very shortly, within the month, we'll be out to construction bid to renovate that space. So we really feel like the year is more than adequate for what we need. In terms of the cost,
Councilman Kraus, it's $144,000 for 1 year.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's a not to exceed amount as we continue to negotiate with the Housing Authority as well.
Okay. Director, I have the greatest respect for you and the work that you do. I'm certainly not looking to be an obstructionist. I'm happy to support this and help to move it along today. But I'd just be misrepresenting myself that I get a little bit worried about the monies and where they go and how we should be managing them, or perhaps maybe doing a little, I don't know exactly how I want to say this, but being cognizant of just how precarious the times can be financially. We, right now we're doing okay. We have the ARPA money coming in. We kind of stabilized everything, but we would be doing a great disservice to the public at large to not continually trumpet that stability is for a shorter period of time than we would like to see. and that it behooves us to really watch the pennies that are going to turn into dollars, because we don't know what 2024 holds for us when the ARPA money is gone, and we don't know what the tax base ultimately is going to be and what kinds of revenues are going to be coming in, and the kinds of difficult decisions this council may be forced to make in 2024. But again, I mean this sincerely. I have the deepest amount of respect for you and the work that you do, and because of your suggestion and recommendation, I'm going to proceed with this, but just needed to put out there that we need to be mindful of the pennies.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Thanks, Director. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President,
No, I'm just going to abstain probably today.
any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 One abstention.
Any opposed? One abstention. Council
Yes.
President?
Yes, thank you.
Affirmative recommendation. I apologize, I didn't realize.
Okay.
That will move us on to Bill 594.
Bill 594, a resolution providing for an agreement with Northside Christian Health Center in an amount not to exceed $90,220.54 as part of the 2019 City Council Public Service Grant Program.
Motion to approve discussion?
Second.
Second.
Councilman Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you'll see this is a resolution for an agreement with a Northside Christian Health Center. The funds were in a previous bill, so the fiscal part of this was in a previous bill, and to by all laws that required to use these funds, we have to enter into an agreement. So this is just to finalize this project. So any questions about that, or like to take a vote on it today? Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for members to Rule 8 this yesterday.
Madam President?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to mention that, again, I think that we're doing all these different organizations, and all this funding that we send to organizations needs to be streamlined a little bit so we can have a better watch on what's going out the door, who we're funding, what we're actually funding, what they're actually doing in the community, if anything, whether they are registered with the Department of State, whether they completed their 990s, their federal documents, whether they have the 501c3 status. Not anything with this, because I'm sure Councilman Wilson probably did more than his due diligence, because I know he does. But in general terms, I just want to say, as we have moved forward and we have a lot of money going out and a lot of people who applied for grant funding, for the Stop the Violence Fund, for our CDBG funding, for all the different things, we have different criteria for ACPO and for different ones. I just think we need to streamline that a little bit and have a set standard for applications and for distributions of those dollars. And we also need to know that the controller is doing audits of appropriate, to make sure programs are actually happening that we're funding. Because a lot of times we see people getting funding, we're like, well, we never saw that program in our district, never. And so I keep talking about how I'm going to be more watchful of this, and I'm definitely going to be.
Thank you. Councilwoman Strasburger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I wholeheartedly agree with the council president. That said, when it comes to federally qualified health centers like this one, as we determine the best way to track and hold accountable the organizations to whom we distribute funds, I would like to also figure out a way to not create duplicate the processes or the paperwork for organizations that have to do mountains of paperwork to meet federal requirements, like federally qualified health centers like this one, the Squirrel Hill Health Center, others. So wanted to just add that to the chorus of this call for additional oversight, but also some flexibility when it comes to additional paperwork for some that already have a lot of requirements to meet.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Second round. Councilman Wilson?
I think the councilperson Strasburger summed it up well. To your point, I agree. In this case, like we talked about the FQHC status that they have, and their ability to provide affordable health care to the community and to Pittsburgh. I'm looking forward to this project. So thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 595.
Bill 595, resolution authorizing and directing the Pittsburgh City Controller to perform an audit of the city and related intergovernmental authorities' compliance with the service worker prevailing wage ordinance.
Motion to approve discussion.
Second?
Discussion, Councilman Wilson?
Yes. First off, I want to thank all members for getting this to the table today. I know with recess coming up, we were, rotating a lot of bills here. So I appreciate everyone being timely with this bill. I think it's important, and I should say that this is a friendly resolution that we worked on with the Controller's Office to send over an official resolution to direct. Like I said, it's a friendly resolution, but the language is to direct the Controller to do this audit. Essentially, 12 years ago, this council passed an ordinance that requires private development projects that are subsidized by public monies to pay wages that reflect the local wage scale. So this Prevailing Wage Act that went into effect 12 years ago, I believe that we have some work to do still on this to ensure that people that are hired, especially service workers, are hired to work at these places that they're paid a fair living wage, and so we need to make sure that that's happening. Simply speaking, so three items here of what we'd like to see covered is to compel employers to provide annual payroll data. So these are things that we know aren't happening, and so to see where we are at and how we can provide some accountability to this. We also want to provide any ongoing reporting, the number of service workers who have benefited from the existence and or enforcement of this ordinance. Also track job creation, job quality data for these publicly subsidized developments. So with that said, I'm proud to introduce this legislation and start a public conversation about ensuring that the city of Pittsburgh and our partners in local government are paying service workers a fair living wage. So thanks.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 605.
Bill 605, resolution further amending resolution number 93 entitled Providing for an Agreement or Existing Agreements and or Contracts or Use of Existing Contracts, and for the purchase of materials, supplies, equipment, and or services for various projects in connection with the City Council Neighborhood Needs Program in Council District 3, and providing for the payment of costs thereof by transferring $2,500 to the Hilltop Alliance. Total cost of all District 3 Neighborhood Needs Project is not to exceed $51,943.77.
We can read 606 as
Motion
well.
to approve, discussion?
Councilman Kraus, you want us to read Bill 606 as together?
Yes, please.
Bill 606, resolution further amending and supplementing resolution number 855 of 2011 entitled Adopting and Approving the 2012 Capital Budget by transferring $2,500 to Hilltop Alliance within District 3 Neighborhood Needs.
Motion to approve, brief discussion.
Councilman Kraus?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. This is just a reimbursement of funds that Hilltop Alliance expended for a project in the 3rd Council District, and we are paying it back to our neighborhood needs dollars, and I appreciate the support of members. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation for both 605 and 606. That takes us to our deferred papers. First bill is Bill 437.
Bill 437, resolution adopting the reapportionment plan for the city council districts in the city as set forth in the final report of the Reapportionment Advisory Committee.
Motion to approve with discussion, please.
Second discussion, Councilman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to start by thanking the Reapportionment Committee for the hard work that they've done. You know, anyone who has gone through this process understands just how very complex and how very complicated redistricting can be. Redistricting is obviously ordered by the census. We do this every 10 years. This is the second time since I've been a member of council that we have gone through the redistricting process. But I especially want to recognize my Chief of Staff, Bob Charlin, for all of the work that he did. He truly worked endless hours on this to make this reapportionment map be the very best that it could be. We're given very strict limitations and guidelines and procedures that we must follow, and it can be a very tedious process to work through, the details. The devil's in the details, and it can get quite complicated. So I would be remiss not to thank Bob for all of his hard work and his diligence in the part that he played in bringing this map to us today. And then secondly, I would really like to thank my colleagues on council. These, they're not easy choices, they're not easy decisions to make. Sometimes, the discussions get a little bit heated and it goes back and forth any number of times as we try to craft a compromise that we think is truly in the best interest of the constituencies that we represent. The one thing that I am just so very happy with and so very happy to share with constituency is that you all know I represent the neighborhood of the Bells River community, and from the day I got in office, there has been a steadfast request by constituency in Bells River to see that McKinley Park actually become connected in with the Bells River neighborhood. McKinley Park is essential to the history and the integrity of this 100 and some plus year neighborhood, and we have worked diligently with the Pittsburgh Park Conservancy to do major renovations to the park, which has done a lot to raise property values in the neighborhood of Bells River, and to sort of consummate the importance that this park brings to that neighborhood and to the hilltop in its entirety. And today, the map that's being presented, thanks to very hard work by my colleagues that I couldn't be any more appreciative of. When this is voted through today, the McKinley Park will now exist within the 3rd Council District and be married with the neighborhood of Bells River as it should have been all along. And so for that, you have my deepest and most sincere thanks and gratitude for the hard work and your willingness to bring this request of mine into fruition. So with that, I'm very happy to vote the reapportionment map that's presented to us today, and to once again thank Bob, the members of the reapportionment committee, and of course, most importantly, my colleagues in presenting this map and bringing this forward in the best interests of the constituents that we serve. So thank you very much. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I have Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too want to echo the thoughts of Councilman Kraus in thanking the reapportionment committee. I know I've followed it closely. I think most of us have followed, closely as to the hard work that they put into it. God bless James. I think he had, a total of about 30 maps he reconstructed. And, ultimately, I will say, I believe we got it right. Not every member may be happy with the outcome, but there were some very important things there that we had to be creative with, that we had to talk through. Up until late yesterday, we were discussing this and coming to a consensus, which I'm so happy that we came to. I agree with you, Councilman Kraus. McKinley Park belongs in District 3. I think 90% plus of the people who utilize that park are from District 3. And that was right. Again, we had to be creative. I want to thank the county and David Voy coming over and, helping us, decide what we could and what we could not do. And, they were very patient with us and got us the answers that we needed. So I'm very happy with the outcome. It took a lot of hard work. I want to thank my colleagues again for working on this with me, and especially the reapportionment committee. They really have a lot of hours in this, and I'm just happy we only have to do this once every 10 years. So with that, thanks. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. That's another story. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Thank you. Madam President?
Thank you. First, I want to make a motion to amend by substitution.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on the motion to amend?
We'll talk during the regular bill, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill is amended. Discussion?
Yes,
Councilman
I want to
President?
thank everyone. Jonathan Alexander was the person who represented District 2 on that committee, and he's not political. He's not been involved in politics. He's actually a resident from Sheridan. He's in a CPA, and he works for Allegheny County Controller's Office, then Chelsea Wagner, and now Controller O'Connor. But he's done a great job in our area, making sure that he was trying to balance the needs of every district and making sure he looked out for District 2 and followed all the guidelines. So I just want to thank him because he really had trial by fire. But, again, we do it once every 10 years, but we may be doing it again twice this year if we take Wilkinsburg. And if I keep going further north, my son may actually be back in my district. So anyway, but I do want to thank the law department. I want to thank our solicitor. I want to thank our clerk's office, our sergeant at arms, everyone who's helped bring this together. All of you, the people that you've appointed, and especially our colleagues. But one person I really think really drove me insane through the whole process, but really kept us all on track is Sean Carter from Reverend Burgess's office. He's one of the most brilliant people here on this floor, and I know sometimes we want to throttle him, but it's because he is so smart. we can't figure out his strategy all the time, but I do think that he made sure that everybody got a little piece of what we wanted. He made sure that every district had some concessions and every district had some benefits. And so I want to thank everyone for working through this, and I'm happy we're putting this behind us, hopefully. So, and eager to represent the additional areas that we'll have included in our area, in District 2. Thank you. That's
Councilwoman
it.
Gross?
Thank you. I want to just like to acknowledge also all of the people that have been mentioned already, and thank you, Councilman Cogg, for mentioning the District 7 appointee, James Murray, who did, I think, I think at least 20 maps to try to find these compromises. But I just want to kind of refresh the conversation that, as a reminder, we are required to, every 10 years, to bring the districts into alignment by population so that no district has way more population than another. So that said, District 7 had to lose territory because it had too many people in it, and it wasn't, they needed to put people in other districts. So I want to acknowledge the citizens of Polish Hill who turned out to, I think, every of the public hearings of the reapportionment committee, turned out to the public hearing here at City Council, and their request was to keep Polish Hill in District 7 with its neighbors, Bloomfield and Lawrenceville, especially because of the tight neighborhood relationships. And this amendment keeps every single inch of Polish Hill in District 7. But you'll see if the public looks at it that we had to get creative and split one very large precinct, which was 6th Ward, 1st District, which is physically large and had gained a lot of population, way larger than most voting precincts around the city. And so this amendment uses as a boundary the census tracts and census blocks to draw the line at 33rd Street, which is the neighborhood boundary. So the entirety of the strip district goes into District 1, so that District 1 has enough population. But the neighborhood line of Polish Hill is the dividing line. And what I learned that I didn't know before is that our city neighborhood lines follow those census tracts and blocks. And so in the desire to keep Polish Hill intact, it was actually fairly easy to, it's not actually easy. It did take some time, but it follows the neighborhood line precisely. So I'm happy with the compromise. I want to acknowledge the one person who hasn't been acknowledged yet is Madam President for wrangling all of the members in all of their various, fighting for each of our residents, right? And we've all put in a lot of hours. So I really appreciate it, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So first, I want to echo a lot of what's been said is thanking the committee, the reapportionment committee that was chosen by council, and they worked really around the clock to figure something out with the challenges of staying within the deviation from population to being mindful of each community and what they seek to see in a map. So it's very challenging, I think, but I really appreciate Council President Teresa Cal Smith in this moment, because without her leadership, we might not have been able to get to this in a timely manner. And then all council members for all their work on this in the past few weeks to come to this moment. That said, District 1 will be crossing a river, so that's a big moment. You too? Oh, could you get Bruno to Bruno Island?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're crossing rivers here in the city of Pittsburgh, and that's a big moment for us. But I put that lightly, but I'm really looking forward to the challenge ahead. Looking to the final vote on Tuesday. So I want to put a little humor in there about District 1 going across the river, but it is it's something to it's great to see. Obviously, this happens every 10 years, and but I have to say that District 1 had to grow because of the loss of population. Sure, the state penitentiary closed, and that was a loss of population. But here in the city of Pittsburgh, we're under a crisis in a lot of ways. 650,000 people used to live here in in the 80s, late 70s, right? 50s and 60s. So, but 300,000 is what we're teetering around that population number. So, continually, especially what we're trying to do with the land bank, to have, to put in place recycling tools for land and of vacant abandoned property, and to do it, in the right way. I mean, I just think we all, that conversation can't go away. I mean, we're seeing that happen in the map here. We're seeing some places growing population do very well, and then we're seeing others that are, continually neighbors are seeing the house abandoned and vacant next to them, and they may not feel as though this is the best street for them, and then they move away from the city of Pittsburgh. And we don't want that to happen. I think, a lot of us on council, we have a lot of, we've heard so many great stories of Pittsburgh, and continues to be a great and thriving place, but we need to make it we need to make all these streets a place where people can live. So I'm going to stop being long-winded here, and I want to just thank all members. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Councilman Wilson's point, yeah, if there's ever a time when we have to all recognize that uneven growth in the city and population loss in some parts of the city and population growth in other parts of the city affects us all, this is it, right? We're all feeling it in the redrawing of this map, and with some council districts having to grow in new ways geographically that are going to be a change for them, and other districts like the one I represent having to shrink in geographic, in the land that it actually encompasses. So, but I'll also echo what everyone else has said and call out my appointee to the Reapportionment Committee, Emily Yonan, my chief of staff, who just did an amazing work. She was vice chair and also, have to point out, attended every single meeting and hearing and just was there every single time to hear people's concerns and to work with everybody. I also really appreciate the entire the work of everybody, Council President Cale Smith, our Finance Chair, Councilman Lavelle, and the work that everyone did. I recognize that there has been a tremendous amount of compromise and wrangling of people and listening to concerns. And I think this is, in a lot of ways, a great map. It's a great new set of districts, and I know that a lot of people are getting, have gotten what they needed and wanted. I also have to recognize that there have been, maybe not as vocally publicly, but a lot of people in the district that I represent who are unhappy with this map, and there weren't a whole lot of options to change it in the way that we wanted to, because of the constraints that we're under and because of the criteria that we have to fit. So I am going to be voting no today. That's not an indictment or a critique of the committee, and it's not an indictment or it's not a critique of the map as a whole. But I do really have to listen to my constituents and vote that way. So I just wanted to explain a little bit why I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill, sorry.
Second round. Okay. I failed to mention Blake Plavchak. Blake was on this from the beginning. He kept me in tune. We talked about it on a daily basis. And I know he worked in conjunction with, the other appointees. I also failed to mention, yes, Madam President, I don't know how you do it. I really don't. She has 9 different personalities coming at her. We each have our own set of problems that we bring. And I know I'm a lot to deal with, and, I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate you working through this and getting us to what I think is an acceptable, outcome. And I did want to point 2 other things out. We as city council, we did this, we tried to follow what the people were telling us. It wasn't necessarily I wanted to keep on air. It wasn't necessarily Deb Gross wanted to keep Polish Hill. The people were speaking to us. So I want the city of Pittsburgh to know, and these 2 neighborhoods, Bon Air and Polish Hill, I believe they really mirrored each other. I believe Polish Hill wanted to stay in connection with Bloomfield and Lawrenceville, and that's kind of their identity. Likewise with Bon Air. Bon Air, I think, wanted to stay with Beachview and Brookline, and what they've been there for 40 years. So I'm really happy that we came to a consensus on that. Again, I just wanted to thank everybody again. I think we got it right, as right as we can get it. So thanks.
Mr. Chair, may I have a second round, please?
Yes, Councilman Kraus.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. One other outcome of the redistricting map is that the 3rd Council District continues to represent Mount Oliver City, St. Clair. And so, Suzanne, if you're watching, or someone is watching for Suzanne, I just want to say you're stuck with me again for at least the next 10 years, and it's an honor and a pleasure, a true pleasure to be able to continue to represent the Mount Oliver City St. Clair neighborhood, and I'm excited that we won't be moving on after all, but that we'll be staying with you. So thanks, Mr. Chair, appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I don't want to forget to thank specifically by name. I did thank everyone who was involved, but I didn't thank specifically Jesse from Law. Jesse, does anyone know his last name? Exelis, Jesse Exelis from Law Department, and Giovanni from IMP. I'm not even going to ask, but Giovanni was there all the time. Giovanni Smith from IMP. No, but Giovanni from IMP, he did. I mean, they did an amazing job. They were there for every meeting, and same with our IMP department televising our meetings. But I also want to thank Dan Friesen, our city solicitor, too. But definitely thank all the people on the committee there. we sat in my office last night and I looked at all their different chiefs of staffs and I thought they're all going to be on council and we're going to be a much better council when they are, because they are amazingly smart, energetic people. So I just want to say thank you to all of them.
Thank you. Last, Councilman Wilson, second round.
I just want to speak to, I know, from my end, what I was familiar with as paying attention to the map, obviously the neighborhoods that I'm familiar with, and also heard some others, talk about keeping neighborhoods together. I just want to make a comment about there was a real effort to keep neighborhoods intact, and that was a big concern for neighborhoods. I mean, there were several meetings that I went to. There was, a few meetings where neighborhoods say, just, keep us intact. Whatever you're doing, we like to have, our neighborhood group, people come on, whether the evenings, 6, 7 o'clock at night, that they can discuss all those issues with one member. So I really do appreciate the efforts to keep that intact. Thanks.
Thank you. With that, I'll also take a moment just to thank all the members of the committee, especially the chair who works, my chief of staff, Dan Wood.
Yeah, he was fantastic. He was.
And then I also just want to thank all those who even worked tirelessly yesterday, including council members, Giovanni, Sean, who worked into the evening to help us get this map done. So thank you all for your due diligence.
Thank you for yours too.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
One in opposition. Affirmative recommendation. Thank you very much. That will move us to our new papers. Madam President, will you please read Bill 555?
Madam President or Madam Clerk?
Madam Clerk, I'm sorry. 555, 556, 557, 558, and we can do 559 as well. These are all interrelated to moving ARP dollars.
Okay, you're gonna skip 522, correct?
Wait.
Did I skip something?
Yeah, 522,
Oh,
523.
I had turned the page. I
Yeah.
apologize. Can we first read Bill 522, 523, and 524 together?
Good. 522, ordinance amending Title VI, Conduct Article 1, Regulated Rights and Actions by creating a new Chapter 620, Protection of Abortion Providers from Out-of-State Investigation or Persecution for Providing Legal Abortion Care. Bill number 523, ordinance amending Title VI, Conduct Article 1, Regulated Rights and Actions by creating a new Chapter 603, Enforcement Limitations regarding bans of certain reproductive health services. Bill number 524, ordinance amending Title VI, Conduct Article 1, Regulated Rights and Actions by creating a new Chapter 607, Regulations of Deceptive Advertising by limiting services pregnancy centers.
Motion to approve discussion.
Second.
Discussion, Councilman Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to talk about all the bills, but first I'd like to go through the amendments before discussing the bills. So I have 3 amendments, one for each bill. I'd like to just quickly explain roughly on each of them,
Table first.
but I'm going to motion to amend 522, 523, and 524.
Second.
Discussion, Councilman?
So each of the bills, you'll see there are definitions in places where there haven't been. For instance, we define abortion in 522 and 523. Also, whenever we are looking at Bill 522, the very first one, of protection of reproductive health care services from the Shield bill, where it protects from out-of-state investigation, for instance, West Virginia or Ohio. We also made some clarifications in coordination with law. So in section 620.02, where it states no assistance from the city of Pittsburgh officials, we originally had a paragraph that was describing that, and we broke it down into a more comprehensive way, so there's a better understanding. So that is some additions, but also technical. 523 is also some technical ones. This is the one where it deprioritizes the enforcement And this is the if-then one. So if the state would ban abortion, that this would instruct our local city officials and also our City of Pittsburgh Police to deprioritize this. So similar to deprioritizing marijuana in the cases where people will be carrying a low amount of marijuana. So this is technical in nature as well. I do want to talk about the clarifying in certain reproductive health care services, including abortion, ever becomes illegal nationwide or in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that we clearly defined what would be deprioritized. Whereas before, it just said any abortion-related crime. Now it clearly defines related to or providing, receiving these reproductive health care services, including abortion, to the full furthest extent possible. And then finally, on the third bill, 524, this bill speaks to the regulation of deceptive advertising by limited services pregnancy centers. So you'll see that the recital section is strengthened. For instance, in similar bills, we did the same with paid sick leave and also in the time of COVID paid sick leave to strengthen our argument that this is a health and wellness concern. And in our charter, it directs us to ensure the health and wellness of our citizens. And so, any sort of commercial deceptive advertising that's going on, that we would we wouldn't allow any sort of deceptive advertising. So there is the strength in the recital side in terms of the whereas section. Other than that, there is also an added definition of abortion.
I just want to know, did you run these by the law department? That's all.
Yes, I'm going to make further comment here once these are amended. But all three bills, especially, all three bills, were given the same attention to the law department, and we had a very robust conversation directly with. I want to thank Jesse Exilis and also the solicitor in terms of assisting my office and me in getting this done.
So I just want to say, I wonder if they got approval from the law department, because yesterday, I don't know if you heard the public comment from a church in Mount Washington where they talked about how they would definitely sue because they didn't feel like they were doing deceptive advertising. I mean, heck, some of our politicians could be sued for that, but I think that, I just think that, I just want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation. I'm going to vote in favor in the end, but I want to make sure that that they're okay with this. That's all. So if you don't have do you have something in writing from the law department saying it's okay?
I think this is a matter where, we are making the bills as strong as they can be. And at the end of the day, we're doing something here in the city of Pittsburgh of, a vote in the positive would be to do everything we can to protect reproductive health care in the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
For people, that will come here or are currently Pittsburghers.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put you in this situation. I'm just want to know, because I didn't vote for the gun laws because they were not, we didn't have that jurisdiction. So, and there's other things I haven't voted for. I try to be consistent. So I just want to know that it's okay from the law department. So I'll abstain today, and then I'll get something in writing. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'll feel better.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The bill is amended. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Councilman Wilson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in light of Dobbs, in the post Dobbs world, this is it's quite shocking to see that decision in terms of allowing states to make this determination. And you know, we've been discussing this and working on this, these package of bills, since there was the leak of that decision. So I'm thankful for the assistance, and these are two individuals that we've been working with, and you know, I'm gonna have them come to the table soon. But I'm thankful for the assistance of Greer Donley and Sue Fricci in framing these bills. So it's been quite a pace here in the past couple weeks, or you know, since the leak came. So about, you know, obviously more than a couple weeks, but recently, you know, since that decision came down on that Friday, it's been quite a pace. So I appreciate everyone involved. I want to thank my office. I want to thank all individuals that worked in this law department. I want to especially thank the co-sponsors, Councilpersons Strasburger and O'Connor. The city law department was also tremendously instrumental in helping tighten up these bills, and I'm thankful for their hard work. So, with that said, can I have? I'd like to ask Sue Fricci to come to the table, and also I believe we have Greer Donley online.
Hi, I'm here. I can't start my video.
Hi. If you could introduce Greer, Greer and Sue, if you could introduce yourselves, that'd be great, and then we'll start from there.
Greer, I defer to you. Go ahead, Sue.
My name is Sue Fricci. I am a staff attorney, and right now I am the interim co-director of the Women's Law Project. I'm a resident of Squirrel Hill and a constituent of Councilwoman Strasburger's.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greer Donley. I'm an associate professor at the University of Pittsburgh Law School. My research and scholarship focuses on abortion in the law. I'm also a Squirrel Hill resident. I live about a few blocks from Sue and am also represented by Councilperson Strasburger.
Well, I appreciate you coming today, and if I'm not sure who's best, or it would be great to hear from both of you on the you know, to explain the context of what's happening here in terms of nationally and regionally, on what reproductive health care looks like now after the Dobbs decision.
Sure. I can speak more knowledgeably about local conditions. And Greer, I think you have such expertise nationally. Would you like to set the stage for the national situation?
That would be perfect. So we're obviously here today because the Supreme Court just overturned nearly 50 years of precedent and held that the Constitution, the federal Constitution, no longer protects the right to abortion. This opens up the door for roughly half the country to eventually ban abortion in the coming months. And as devastating of a decision as that is, I am often in the unfortunate position of telling people that the worst is yet to come. We know this because the anti-abortion movement is telling it to us directly. One of the next waves of the abortion wars will be that anti-abortion states will try to reach outside of their borders to punish people who are offering or receiving completely legal reproductive health care in states like Pennsylvania. State legislators from South Dakota to Arkansas are on the record saying that they are working on and drafting legislation to try to punish people for traveling to states to get abortions and to try to punish doctors in states where abortion is legal for offering care to their citizens. We know what some of this will look like because Missouri introduced a bill like this last year. It used the SB 8-style civil mechanism to try to say that it was illegal for anyone to aid or abet someone by helping them cross state borders to get abortion care. The National Right to Life's model legislation recently included a provision that would criminalize providers who offered care to minors from states where it was banned. We cannot wait to do whatever we can to protect our healthcare providers and our citizens from these out-of-state prosecutions and lawsuits. Pittsburgh is located in an important location, given that we are surrounded by some states that are going to ban abortion, like West Virginia and Ohio, meaning that we're likely to see a lot of out-of-state residents in our city. And it would be wonderful for Pittsburgh to be a place that welcomes these people who need this vital care from out of state. Our providers are willing and able to offer this care and want to provide this resource, but they should not have to risk their freedom and their livelihood to provide this lawful care. The SHIELD bill today would help to protect our providers. It can't eliminate all risk, but combined with the governor's recent executive order, it can mitigate a lot of the risk. And in this moment, we should do whatever we can to protect our providers and show that we have their backs, given that they are providing fully lawful care in our state. There are two other bills today that are also very important. The first is a trigger bill, which would deprioritize the enforcement of crimes related to abortion provision if abortion were to become illegal here. The second is a bill that makes it illegal for limited services pregnancy centers to engage in deceptive advertising. These crisis pregnancy centers are fake abortion clinics whose whole purpose is to try to convince people not to have abortion, often through deceptive means. These clinics outnumber real abortion clinics, and people should not be able to lie to others to try to stop them from engaging in lawful health care. So I just want to thank you so much to Councilperson Wilson, Strasburg, and O'Connor for introducing this vital legislation, and I'll turn it over to Sue, who has some more additional local insights. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So as part of my job at the Women's Law Project, I represent the freestanding abortion facilities in Pennsylvania and have done that since 1992. And I can tell you there has never been a time like this ever. The level of fear and intimidation that is coming not from our state officials, but from people in other states, in other legislatures. From Texas, for crying out loud. The SHIELD law is the heart of this package of bills. It is so important. It is absolutely necessary to offer more protection for providers and their patients. And the governor's executive order, which was issued yesterday morning, was extremely good news. He joins 10 other states in extending protection from other states' predation. But his executive order is not able to fill every gap, and that's why we need Bill 522, because that does reach some city-level actors who would not be affected by the governor's executive order. Our state has a very extensive set of abortion laws and a regulatory framework that is vigorously enforced by the Department of Health and the Department of State at the state level. Abortion complications are vanishingly rare. This is a safe procedure in our city. And the fact that I have doctors calling me saying, am I going to go to jail for practicing legal medicine under the laws of our state? That cannot happen in this city. So the city of Pittsburgh has been so extremely helpful in supporting reproductive health care providers, and I'm looking back at the buffer zone ordinance that was passed back in 2005 and that the city defended through a lot of litigation and defended successfully at every single turn. And my only comment on the other laws would be, the other bills would be Bill 523. It's very important that in deprioritizing enforcement of abortion-related laws, we must not have a deprioritization of enforcement of the buffer zone and other statutes that protect providers and patients from extremist violence. That is a problem. It's a continuing problem. The buffer zone has been very effective in managing confrontations on the sidewalk in front of our 2 freestanding facilities and needs to continue to be enforced.
Well, thank you, Greer, and thank you, Sue. I'd like to defer to the councilperson Strasburger right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first, I really want to thank Councilman Wilson and his staff, particularly Mohammed Birney, for his leadership and really taking the initiative to create a safe haven in Pittsburgh, as we've done so many times on other issues. And I can't think of a time more urgent than now, not only considering the Dobbs decision, but also acknowledging that in the 11th hour of the state budget process, our state legislators passed by narrow margins a constitutional amendment that would effectively ban abortion if several different steps that would have to occur to get it on a ballot initiative, but and get it passed through a ballot initiative process. But starting that process makes these set of bills even more urgent and even more timely. I want to thank Sue Fritchie and Greer Donnelly for being here today and for all the assistance that the two of you have provided to Councilman Wilson and all of us as sponsors on this bill and speaking here today. And obviously the urgency of the situation requires that cities like Pittsburgh, who have the opportunity to serve as a refuge for reproductive care, take every action in their power to do so. So that's why I'm voting on this bill today, on these bills today. And I want to acknowledge that the stripping of abortion rights will have a disparate effect on members of marginalized groups who often lack the resources to travel the long distances that may now be required to seek reproductive care. And so this underscores why it's imperative to protect abortion access for those making the costly journey to our city. I'd also like to specifically address some of the criticism leveled at one particular component of this legislation that we heard in public comment yesterday, the prohibition on limited services pregnancy centers disseminating false or misleading information. We've heard a lot about how this is an infringement on free speech or the right to express religious views. And I want to be absolutely clear, this is not limiting anyone's right to espouse a personal opinion about abortion or any other issue. What we are doing today is preventing establishments who hold themselves to be medical counseling services from providing false information to patients in need, just as any other establishment is prevented from deceiving or defrauding their customers. And if they are indeed not providing deceptive advertising, they will not be affected by this law. So it's well within our authority, I believe, to protect the health and safety of any patient who seeks reproductive or abortion care in Pittsburgh, and it's an essential component to protecting these rights. In addition to those who have really provided assistance in these bills, I do want to give a shout out to all of the organizations that have worked for decades in this fight and in this effort to protect equality, gender equality in this way. It's Planned Parenthood, it's the Women's Law Project, it's also New Voices for Reproductive Justice, it's the National Council of Jewish Women, it's Feminist Majority, it's the National Organization for Women, so many other organizations, but as legislators, we can move bills that protect rights, and that's why I'm proud to stand with Councilman Wilson and other colleagues to vote for today's legislation. And I hope that these bills can make an impact for anybody who seeks reproductive care in the city of Pittsburgh. Thank you.
I just want to say I appreciate Councilwoman Strasburg's opinion, but I really like to have something from the actual law department on at least just Bill 524. The other ones, I'm ready to vote for that one. I just want to make sure that we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross.
Yeah, I want to thank the sponsors of the bills, and I want to thank also all of the partner organizations, as Councilwoman Strasburger pointed out, who have been fighting for our rights collectively for so many decades. And I think maybe just one other point that hasn't been said enough is that this is fighting for medical rights and our right to privacy and our medical choices. And this threat to abortion rights is really a threat to all of our rights, because what rights will they go after next? And so it's not only about abortion care, right? And so it's I think to everyone's credit here that to do the hard work to draw this line in the sand. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First and foremost, I just want to let you know, Councilman Wilson and Councilwoman Strasburg, I really respect your willingness to take on this very sensitive subject. I think we were all, disappointed, I think, in the Supreme Court's judgment, but and I stand with you in solidarity with your legislation. I also do have concerns, as Council President has, as to 524, and I can't help to have been moved by Pastor Gilbert and his wife yesterday. And I have a couple questions on that. And I don't want to bring the attorneys to the table or the law department, but just tell me if I'm correct in assuming, are we on good legal ground, first of all? And for me, in reading the legislation, what puts us on legal ground is the deprioritization rather than making it law. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand the question exactly.
So, as far as our legal standing goes, as far as us being sued by organizations that surely will probably try that, in making it deprioritization for our law enforcement to not, hold people personally responsible, and is that how we are is that what makes us in good legal standing ground? And are we on good legal standing ground, I guess?
It wasn't my understanding of that bill that was its purpose. My understanding of that bill is that the purpose is that if in the future either the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or the United States criminalize abortion, that Pittsburgh will not choose to devote its law enforcement resources to going after those particular crimes. Yeah. I think that's the
that's right. That's right. I guess I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I didn't know if
Can I answer that real fast?
Sure. Please do, Greer.
I would just like to say that, two things. First of all, this is a classic trigger bill. The anti-abortion movement has used these in a variety of contexts. It won't come into effect unless the state or federal government bans abortion. So that's the first thing to note. In the short term, I don't think there's much threat of being sued. And the second part is I agree completely with Sue, right, that the reason why, there have been concerns about this law in terms of preemption. The reason why this law should not cause preemption concerns is because it does not conflict with state law to the extent, or federal law to the extent that it says, hey, in Pittsburgh, this is totally legal if the state or federal government says it's not. It says, hey, if this is illegal, we are going to deprioritize it, put it to the bottom of the list. And so, it's worth noting that another city in Pennsylvania has passed a law like this. So it's not, we're not the first to go out on a limb to do that. Radnor City passed that law too. So I think with the trigger law, I'm not concerned about it having a huge legal risk. That doesn't mean we won't get sued, right? This is abortion. It's likely that, people will want to come after these laws, but I think the legal footing is strong.
Thank you for clearing that up, Greer. And that's the line I was thinking on, so I appreciate that. I proudly support your 522, 523. I do want to abstain on 524 until we get a little more information as to what is false information, I guess, is really my question, unless you want to take that up now.
I would just say that the bill contains a feature that should protect you and should protect the city and should protect everybody from incorrect enforcement. And that is, it has to be a knowingly deceptive, something that a person either knows or certainly should know is deceptive. So mistakes would not fall under that law.
Okay.
And in order
And if
to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would just like to add too, as Councilperson Strasburger said, I apologize, I didn't hear the public comments that were made yesterday, so I feel like I'm responding a little bit blind, but to the extent that their comment is that they're not providing deceptive services, then their conduct shouldn't fall within the scope of the law at all. This will only be, the Crisis Pregnancy Center law will only come into effect if someone is deceiving someone. And the types of things that, crisis pregnancy centers are known to do is to, for instance, lie about how far along a person's pregnancy is so that they time out of being able to access lawful services in the state, or, to say that they offer abortion when they don't. It is common for legislators to regulate doctors in a variety of contexts. And so, it's, I understand, the Supreme Court a few years ago had a very famous case where it considered a California law that concerned crisis pregnancy centers, and it invalidated that law. This city ordinance was passed after that case came out, trying to make sure it did not violate any of the problems that the Supreme Court found with requiring, for instance, crisis pregnancy centers to do what they consider to be like moral speech, right? This is just saying you can't lie to people. That's it.
Very well, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'll go last, but
Second round, Councilman Wilson?
okay. I want to make a comment about any sort of deceptive advertising. I mean, just like I referenced before, I know you're going to ask me, but I feel compelled to just explain this a little more further. We're stating our reasons of why we think this is important in the recitals, and one in particular stands out to me, and it's whereas if a pregnant person does not receive timely and accurate information, subsequent decisions could lead to further complications and unnecessary medical procedures, which could be costly for both patients and providers. So within our charter with the health and wellness, we're directed to take that into account for all of our citizens. That's why I gave the example of paid sick time and how that, stood the test at the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. And likely so, I feel in this case, we also have the duty to, look at this situation as, if someone is, if a center is being deceptive, then there should be action taken, against that, because it's harming that individual. And so I think it's a very important bill, and it also, in the time where we're talking about this, it's also an important moment that we're talking about this, because it's not something that is typically discussed. And maybe these centers are around and individuals may not recognize them, but now we will. And hopefully individuals will be able to recognize that there are centers out there that may be, leading or being deceptive in some fashion. And so that needs to stop. And I think that's why this bill is important. But in general, the bill that is the SHIELD law bill that protects our healthcare providers, in particular, staff and doctors and anyone anyone related to any sort of procedure or guidance or healthcare, just any healthcare in general to an individual that is seeking healthcare in cases of in cases like this bill would speak to, that they're protected. So this bill, which is, preliminary vote now and final, if it passes today, final vote this coming Tuesday. If passed, this bill will be first of its kind. So the city of Pittsburgh will be the first city in the country to pass a bill like this, the Shield Law bill. And it's easy to say, first bill in the country, but I think what's important here is that I think what we've seen today is with Greer and Sue and what Councilperson Strasburger was talking about, and Councilman Gross, gave further input on all the people that have been working and are the professionals, the experts in this, in this field. Pittsburgh can be a leader and has been leading the way, and so, we look to work with the county, the state. So, I think this bill is extremely important, in particular because we have states around us, that are making it very difficult. They're banning, outright banning the reproductive freedom of individuals in their own state. So, it's just important that we protect our healthcare, people that are seeking healthcare, and the people that. It's important that we protect individuals that are providing health care. So, but in light, I appreciate your comments about the governor, Sue, because I was glad to see Governor Wolf's executive order yesterday on reproductive health care. I'm especially proud that our shielding bill to protect the healthcare providers from out-of-state investigation is going forward, and I'm glad that we have everyone here to discuss this, and I'm looking forward to any further conversation that needs to happen between now and final vote for many of the members. And also, I'm looking forward to any governor, the next governor of Pennsylvania to continue on with Wolf's direction here. So with that said, I have no further comment, but I appreciate everyone coming today. I appreciate Sue and Greer, co-sponsors, and all of council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Madam President?
Yeah, I just want to thank Councilman Wilson. I didn't have a chance to say that. And I didn't disagree with the first two bills. I disagree with the third. I just want to make sure. I think it's a matter of just talking with some people about law. It's a matter of making an amendment to add a description. So we'll talk with our law department about some of that and make sure that we're good.
Thank you.
Because I actually think council needs to hear from our law department to make sure we have clarity. It's great to bring in attorneys that represent organizations and other people, but we need to hear from the people that will defend us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross, were you trying to speak? Nope. Okay, thank you. If not, I have one concern with Bill 524. If I'm reading it correctly, there's no technical definition of what deceptive advertising is.
What did you just say?
Is that correct?
Not in that bill.
That's what needs to be in the bill. That's it.
I think that's correct. Oh, thank you. Thanks.
So 607.02, deceptive practices, sort of talks about it, but it's still within the practices, doesn't actually define what deceptive is, which leaves it sort of up into interpretation.
I think you would look to other statutes that do define deceptive. It is defined, I'm fairly sure, in state law. It may be defined elsewhere. No? You were
No,
not-
she's not talking.
He was talking to someone else.
Sorry. It is defined elsewhere in the law, and you also look at its common usage. So lying, deliberately misrepresenting the truth, that kind of common sense, common usage would be read into this language.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree with that. I mean, certainly the bill could be clarified to add a definition, but I don't necessarily think it needs one, right? That would be a decision for the courts to make. And, you know, I teach statutory interpretation to a bunch of law students, and, you know, the first thing we would do is look to other parts of the city and state code to see where it's defined, and see if it makes sense in this context. And if not, the courts could also look at, you know, common law and other types of law to understand the term.
The consumer protection laws, I think, define deceptive practices. And, but as Greer says, if it would bring comfort to have an actual statutory definition, I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, I'd be interested in that. I'm not going to hold this up for that purpose. Just for my edification, I need to better understand what that actually looks like. My other question is, what is the enforcement or the penalty for this?
There is currently no enforcement mechanism in the bill.
I may abstain today and then be prepared to vote next week once I have better understanding for my own self of what it actually means in common law, what the state defines it as. So I fully understand what I'm voting on.
I think the bottom line is we want to make sure the bills are strong enough that they can withstand any kind of, you know.
Third round, Councilman Wilson.
No, I'll just, say that, I'm happy to amend the bill before Tuesday in terms of clearly defining deceptive advertising.
Okay. Cool, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Any abstentions?
One abstention on Bill 0524.
I will also abstain today on Bill 524.
Likewise. Abstain on Bill
0524.
0524.
So noted.
Okay, so that gives affirmative recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to page 4. Madam Clerk, if we could read, we're going to do one on page 5 as well, and we're going to skip one on page 4. If we could read Bill 555, 556, 557, 558, and then on page 5, 560 together. I will do that one after.
Okay. Bill 556. Bill 555. Resolution amending Resolution 579 of 2021, which authorized an agreement with the PWSA for the completion of projects approved in the City of Pittsburgh's American Rescue Plan by updating the approved projects to align with the revised plan. Bill 556, Resolution amending Resolution 453, which appropriated federal American Rescue Plan funding by updating the approved projects as outlined in Exhibit A. Bill 557, Resolution amending Resolution 580, which authorized an agreement with the URA for the completion of projects approved in the City of Pittsburgh's American Rescue Plan by updating the projects and by adjusting the not-to-exceed amount to align with the revised plan. Bill 558, Resolution further amending Resolution number 886 entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2022 Capital Budget and the 2022 CDBG Program, the 2022 through 2027 Capital Improvement Program by reducing facility improvements, recreation and senior centers by $629,475.94, and increasing facility improvement public safety by $629,475.94. Bill number 560, Resolution providing for the creation of the Bridge Asset Management Program Trust Fund and for setting the conditions for the deposit of funding into the account and for the expenditure of said funds.
Motion?
Motion to approve, brief discussion.
Second.
Discussion? Councilman Coghill?
Thank
Sorry.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if there's anybody to speak to this. I'm just curious as to these funds.
We can.
I'd like to call Director
Pollock can.
please.
I'll give you what I know as he
Okay.
comes forward, just to save time.
Right.
Bill 555, I believe, moves about $500,000 from lead line replacement to wastewater lateral repair and replacement. Bill 556 actually allows for money to be moved out of the ARP trust fund into our capital counts, into the authorities that are going to actually utilize the money. Bill 557 is moving money around within the URA so that it can be better actually spent. It also moves $2 million out of the URA, which was money set aside for artists, and the city can better manage that money than the actual URA can. 558 is pretty straightforward. And then certainly Paula could also talk better about the Bridge Asset Management Trust Fund. But that's the global of what I can know. He can go better into detail.
Sure, sure. And I guess you kind of gave me the answer to most of my questions there, I think. But the trust fund, that money was in the trust fund, but was it earmarked for anything in particular?
I think I can explain globally.
Okay, please do.
So the key bill here, as the chairman mentioned, is Bill 556, which is the bill amending the American Rescue Plan allocation plan.
Mm-hmm.
The other bills are all follow-along items that adjust various agreements or other prior resolutions to implement those changes to the overall spending plan. So the changes here I would describe as primarily administrative or technical in nature, with 4 exceptions. In most cases, the changes are to take funding items that had been one large bucket of funds and breaking it into a longer list of line items that are more clearly itemized. So for example, within some of the URA allocations, we're taking what had been a $21 million pot of money for own PGH and differentiating between...
That was my question right there. This is from...
It's not new money, it's just
Okay,
differentiating
gotcha.
between sub-accounts. So
Gotcha.
some of that will go to the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation, which is a URA subsidiary. Some of it will be utilized for education and counseling for first-time home buyers, and some of it will support other activities. So most of this is consistent with the originally adopted plan, but for accounting purposes is being more specifically described. The 4 significant changes are the establishment of the Bridge Asset Management Program and the associated trust fund. Those are funds that had been previously appropriated under the original American Rescue Plan resolution to be transferred to One PGH, Mayor Peduto's nonprofit initiative. It was determined, and this is not an indication on the prior administration or council's decision last July when this was adopted, but it was determined on the basis of U.S. Treasury Department guidance that was not available until December of last year, that was not an eligible use of funds. So we needed to find a way to reprogram those funds, and identified paying for a comprehensive bridge asset management program as a wise expenditure of those funds in light of the collapse of the Fern Hollow Bridge and other needed improvements to our bridge maintenance. So that is one of the 4 significant changes. The second is the creation of a downtown housing conversion program. The funds there had previously been budgeted to the URA's Homeowner Utility Assistance Program. That is still a very worthy project and one that remains significantly funded in the plan. However, concerns were raised, I think rightly, about the ability to drive out the total amount of funding that had been budgeted there in the relatively limited window of time to which we have to spend ARPA funds. But we're still fully committed to that program, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to identify additional, if it is successful, to identify additional dollars to support it into the future. But it was clear that we weren't going to be able to spend it all in time. And so looking at the next highest potential use of these funds, we identified in partnership with Allegheny County and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, frankly, an important need in the downtown real estate market, with the shift in the ways that individuals, and companies are managing their workforce in light of COVID, with more individuals working from home at least a portion of the week. The vacancy rates, particularly in Class B and C office space in the central business district, are very low. That has a potential to negatively impact our tax base. It certainly also has a potential to impact the sort of neighborhood fabric of downtown. So this is also an opportunity, however, to facilitate the conversion of downtown office buildings that are underoccupied into housing, and in particular affordable housing. The city's resources here would be matched by investments from the state and the county. The portion of the program that we will be funding is targeted at achieving affordability in those projects. A state grant of $3 million has been made to the URA. The URA has identified $900,000 in other funds, and so the city here would be transferring, within monies that were already slated for the URA, $2.1 million for a total of $3 million on our part, and the county is also putting in $3 million as well. And the third significant change is moving, again, within funds already designated for the URA, funding for the Gladstone School Affordable Housing Project, to the acquisition of Hayes Woods Park. For various reasons, it was determined that ARPA funds were not the best use of funds to support Gladstone. Gladstone is a low-income housing tax credit deal. Deals of that structure typically require their public support to come in the form of a loan rather than a grant in order to make the back-end deal mechanics work. We're not permitted to use ARPA funds for loans. They can only be utilized for grants if they're being transferred out to an outside entity. We can, of course, use them. We can spend them to purchase things. So other funds were identified for Gladstone. That deal is actually already closed. So I just want to reassure everyone that that project is still moving forward and is not negatively impacted by this transfer. But knowing that we couldn't use ARPA funds there, we identified the final acquisition of Hayes Woods as being the next best utilization of the funds. Very briefly, between actual acquisition and holding costs over the time in which the URA has been in possession of the Hayes Woods site for the city, the total cost to them has been $6 million. $4 million of that has been raised in private charitable support to offset the cost, leaving a $2 million remainder. Those funds were fronted out of the Pittsburgh Development Fund, which is a fund that council created, I believe, in the 90s to support loans to community business district projects and housing projects. So by acquiring Hayes Woods for that $2 million remainder, we'll be able to reimburse effectively that fund to allow other projects to advance and take possession of Hayes Woods. And I do just want to thank the URA for the years in which they've held the site and have done important cleanup for us, subdividing the site in order to transfer those portions of it that are not within city limits but in Baldwin Borough to Baldwin, applying conservation easements to the mineral rights beneath the site. A lot of work went into preparing the site to become a park for us, and we're now close to being ready to take possession. And the final change is a small one, but I just want to note it for clarity because it involves a transfer across council districts. We'll be moving $629,476 from the Thaddeus Stevens project to the Zone 4 Public Safety project. I do want to just make sure that everyone's aware. It's an even swap. Some services had been procured in support of the Thaddeus Stevens project before we had full guidance on what types of contracts needed to be used in order to access ARPA funds. And so the compliant contracts weren't utilized for that early work. If we were to attempt to move forward with ARPA funds for that project, it would mean basically letting those designs go. We wouldn't be able to purchase them from the designer. So again, making an even swap here because the Zone 4 project has not begun to advance. We can use these funds to move that project forward and then are taking bond funds from the Zone 4 project and moving them to Thaddeus Stevens. So again, neither project will be negatively impacted in final execution. It's just an accounting move.
Let me just say, he knows he wouldn't be able to walk out there with two legs if he was touching anything in my district. So
absolutely right,
not that I
Councilman.
would hurt him or anything, but
I've
just
been down
something
that
like
road with her, yes.
Yeah, so there's no substantive change again
Right.
in terms of the projects that we'll be completing,
Got it.
but just adjusting the
Got
account.
it. And, I should say, Director, I feel you're being very responsible, especially around the affordable housing programs that you have going on. One near and dear to my heart, I hope we can be as creative up in Carrick, when that comes to fruition. Councilwoman Gross and I made a visit out there, and, it's just ripe for that, we feel.
Couldn't agree more, Councilman.
Yep, good, thank you. And I guess the premise of my real question is one PGH, we have no ARPA funds going to one PH, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
With this change, no ARPA funds will be allocated to one PGA.
Got it, it's done.
And for the purposes of ARPA, that's correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You, Councilman
Mr.
Gross.
Chair?
Hold, I hear you. Councilwoman Gross was next.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Pollack, for once again that very precise and detailed level discussion. I really do appreciate your skills in communicating so clearly. And also this, once again, I think this is a second or third week where we've seen really intense due diligence on matching funds to uses and cleaning up accounts. And so it gives me, assurance that I feel like, you're putting really good papers in front of us that are going to keep us, especially in compliance with the ARPA funds, because it's a really important trust fund that we were, so fortunate to get as cities across the country from the federal government. We want to make sure that we do everything perfectly well so that we don't have to pay any of the money back, because that's what happens if we don't do our compliance as well. And so I feel very confident in your work, and I'm grateful. But I also just want to ask some follow-up questions about the $75 million pot that goes to the URA. And so that's that's Bill 557. And as you say, it just kind of clarifies and refines some of the uses. But also, that money hasn't left the city trust fund yet, correct? And this bill will move that money.
This Bill 557 amends the existing resolution that authorizes agreements consistent with what is itemized. So this bill changes the itemization.
Okay.
I know we've been working through individual agreements with the Urban Redevelopment Authority on each authorized project. So each one will have its own agreement. I will have to check. I cannot off the top of my head remember if any of those, the Penn Circle 2A conversion, I believe contract has moved, agreement has moved. Off the top of my head, I believe that's the only one that's been fully authorized at this point, but many others are approaching the point at which we can authorize them to begin moving them. But it's not moving all in one slug. It's moving program by program
Good.
as the URA completes and authorizes policies and procedures through their board that then complete the agreement, and then that agreement can be executed and the funds are moved piecemeal.
No, I thank you for that answer. So there's a dynamic tension here between us wanting to be sure that things are done correctly, and so iteratively like that, with lots of eyes on it. But then again, the clock is ticking, right? And so there we have both things that we want to make sure happens. We want to make sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted. But on the other hand, it's already July of 2022. So since this is a relatively large pot, I would like to hear from you the plan to meet the other ARPA requirement, which is to have the funds, I think, encumbered by 2024. But maybe you could clarify that for me, since I'm a little rusty now. It's like there's encumbering by 2023 and spent by 2024, but for certain kinds of funds, but not others. So maybe you could help us with that.
Funds need to be encumbered before the end of 2024. If the invoices haven't left the account into the first quarter of 2025, that's permissible. But the funds need to effectively be ready to go out the door in 2024. The exception to that is infrastructure projects, which have until 2026. That would affect, I believe, the PWSA lead line pot and no others in our current allocation plan. That having been said, I believe they intend to fully expend those funds well before 2024. So I don't believe we'll be relying on that additional time for infrastructure projects in any of the work that we intend to spend the funds on. There actually are some folks from the URA on participating via Zoom who might be able to speak better than I can to some of your timeline questions. I will just note generally before we get to that, that I would expect as part of the budget process later this year to be coming back to council again to talk about ARPA once again, because when we have new revenue projections for 2023, that recalculation will in turn cause us to recalculate the operating portion of this based on lost revenue. We have to annually update our lost revenue calculations, and that will have bearing on the city operating section of Exhibit A. And in turn, that may result in us either needing to move funds out of operating into other uses or move funds from other uses into operating, depending on how that calculation turns out. So I would think of these actions as primarily a cleanup action with further dialogue to occur in coming years.
Sure.
So-
No, that's excellent answer. Thank you. So my follow-up question is about, I would like to hear from the URA about the kind of plan for meeting the deadlines. But then I also, don't let me forget that I want to ask about the applicability of these funds to the limited equity housing co-op resolution that Councilman Smith and I passed a few months ago that has an upcoming deadline. So while we had looked at existing funds and programs, these are kind of new funds and programs. So if you could speak to that as well. Hello, Mr. Geiger. You can introduce yourself for the audience. And Director Flisserm as well. I was trying to read the name because I was spacing out on the name, so thank you for helping me, Director Pollack.
No problem, Councilwoman. David Geiger, Senior Advisor for the Urban Redevelopment Authority. I think the simplest way to answer your question is that the URA is compelled to provide quarterly reporting on our spending of ARPA dollars. So with the deadline in mind of 2024, the city will be receiving quarterly reports about how these funds are being drawn down and spent each quarter as they get spent, and that will provide members of the mayor's office as well as council the ability to see that we are on track to spend these funds in time and make changes as appropriate as we get closer to deadlines.
Councilwoman, if I could just quickly follow on that to say that
Yes.
we include in the subrecipient agreements here language that allows us to take funds back if they're not moving on a timeline that would permit us to meet the deadline if we need to reappropriate them.
Thank you. I appreciate that because, as I've mentioned before, my office is still tracking our kind of 14 or 15 benchmark cities and how they're doing their ARPA allocations. And some of the ways that we're spending in Pittsburgh, even if the kind of category of spending is the same, we use authorities sometimes where other cities don't, right? And are just kind of spending it out of their own treasury. And so this has been a kind of conversation that I revisit every now and then on council about kind of what is our jurisdiction and our abilities as a city that maybe we don't utilize anymore that we used to and still could, but haven't. I think it will be important for council to get those updates, and maybe the next update could include a little bit more of a timeline for the expenditures, because I didn't hear that yet. I am really enthusiastic about some of these line items, especially the $5 million for community land trust, which I think is just so compatible with some of our other housing, affordable housing strategies. The limited equity housing co-ops is one, but other kinds of home ownership, which can bring down the cost of home ownership but keep permanent affordability in neighborhoods when they have increasing price pressure, especially. And it also could be applied to rental projects as well. So I'm just really excited about that one. I'm excited also to see the nearly $9 million for housing preservation. It is, it's something that we've talked about for a long time. I remember Councilwoman Smith and I, and maybe at the time Councilwoman Rudiak, talking about keeping affordable housing stock available, because in districts, we've lost it in my district over these 8 years, right? And so we should get out in front of the other neighborhoods before they lose it. And I am sad that we pushed for the authorization and the ability to do housing preservation, like affordable preservation, in the housing opportunity funds and in the original language, many years ago now, but we didn't spend that money, and so that money could have preserved more housing at affordable levels in my district, right? And, if we can find any to preserve, that would be great, but we've lost a lot of it. But I think it's really important around the city. And then I'm also really enthusiastic about the office space conversion, and I feel like that's an opportunity that could be even a bigger pot if we, in the future, aren't spending down other parts of ARPA well. There are buildings that will be cheaper to convert, certainly more environmentally friendly to convert. But what I don't see here, and I'd be interested in, is doing those conversions with, for example, tenants' right to purchase in the future. That is something that we don't really have authority to enforce as a city that we wish we did. As far as I can tell, I know I have a lot of people who are working on that, and I'm really enthusiastic about ensuring a right for tenants to purchase a building whenever it is sold or whenever it's being pursued by an aggressive, speculative developers, as we have in my district, right? People buying buildings, displacing tenants from multi-units, and they call it renoviction sometimes, right? Either from homes or for multi-units. But if we're providing the funding here, then we can put those kinds of conditions in a deal. And so I'd be interested to talk more about that. But I think that looks like a low dollar amount to me when you're talking about bigger buildings, especially.
Yeah, this is basically a pilot opportunity to do proof of concept to the Commonwealth, to hopefully have a further conversation about a larger program for office space conversion in a post-COVID world, not just here in Pittsburgh, but actually in all of the urban centers in the state. Those conversations have been ongoing with particularly Senator Costa, as well as the Department of Community and Economic Development. He was instrumental in securing this initial $3 million wave of support from the state to be matched by the city and county, with an eye towards using that as a basis to argue for increased investment in conversions down the line. And I think that is absolutely something that, as this experiment hopefully bears fruit, we can have further conversation about it in the future. But we're just not sure of the scale or necessary match requirements for some prospective future programs. So this will help us get it started and hopefully have some proven projects in the ground to then have further dialogue about that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I didn't hear an answer, unless I missed it, about whether there is any assurance that these funds would not exclude common ownership, like a limited equity housing cooperative. And I'll just clarify again for listeners. There are some times where a program is either for an owner of multi-units, like a single entity, or for a resident homeowner that's assumed to be just one person, and then something like cooperative ownership falls in a gap. So I spoke with, since I've been having a lot of conversations since we introduced the resolution, and I spoke to a person who had created a new one in the last several years in the city of Pittsburgh by combining 3 houses that she'd gotten, I think, from treasurer's sale. So a great project, kind of side-by-side houses. And then the minute that she moved them, with a very sophisticated attorney from Madison, Wisconsin, which is like the mecca of cooperatives, they lost their, what's it called when you get your exemption, homestead exemption? Am I saying it right? Because it was no longer, even though they lived there and they owned the properties, they owned them in common. And so they weren't individual separate owners of a single parcel. And so I want to make sure also in our funding streams that we're not saying, this is just for like multi-units for a single owner, and this is just for homeownership for a single person, and that we allow for the cooperative ownership. So can anyone assure me that you'll make sure you don't unintentionally exclude cooperative ownership? Anybody?
Good afternoon, Council Committee and Councilwoman Gross. Yeah, so I don't think that, it's Greg Clifton with the URA, the Executive Director of the URA. You know, that concept of co-op hasn't really, as far as I know, really entered the conversation. I think it's a really interesting idea. As a former longtime resident of Madison, I'm familiar with some of the models you referenced. So I think it's something that we would like to potentially explore. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head how we would do that. Maybe like a first right of refusal to a tenant cooperative might be part of the thinking there, but I think it's a good idea to insert that into the conversation as a way to try to figure out how to transition some of these properties in the future to co-op ownership if that is an option. So I don't know if Evan wanted to add something to that.
Yes, thanks. My name is Evan Miller. I'm the Acting Director of Housing Lending at the URA. Just to address the councilperson's question, kind of building off of what Director Pollack had said, any of the mechanisms that we'll be expending these funds with, the programs still need to go through the URA board approval process. We need to get guidelines finalized, and your interest and concern about cooperatives is noted, and it's something that the URA has been approached about over the last few months from various people throughout the city. So I do believe that between whether it's the preservation line item or perhaps some of the work we're doing around for sale housing, that we'll be able to build out the flexibility to use some of this funding to support co-ops.
I'm not sure I heard what I was hoping to hear there. Can anyone make me feel a little better about that?
Well, I think what you heard Evan say is that they will work to incorporate the ability to support co-ops into the rules and regulations that have as yet not been adopted by the board. So if I could read between the lines, I think perhaps what he's saying is he can't commit to that until the board does. But that the staff will work to address these concerns and ensure that it is taken into account in the draft policies and procedures or rules and regulations presented to the board ahead of when we would execute an agreement. And I'd be happy to stay in touch with you about that as that process continues.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. We can lobby our councilman who's on the board. Councilman Lavelle, I hope that you will support cooperative ownership and to be not excluded from any of the rules and regulations around the expenditure of these $75 million worth of funds. And then also, I thought I also heard that others have inquired at the URA about cooperatives recently. And I think that Councilwoman Smith and I would like to be notified if you get any inquiries and about the inquiries that you've already received.
Okay, yes, we can do that.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that exhausts my questions, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you, Director Pollack, and everyone at the URA. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Cargill.
If we're still on first round, I think Councilwoman Strasburger.
And Councilman Gross, or Councilman Kraus. Sorry, it's longer.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I wasn't looking at my screen.
Yeah, I'm second round.
Councilman Kraus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Director Pollack, good morning. Thanks for being here. Mr. Chair, are we solely considering 557, or are we also considering 558? I had to step away to take a phone call.
We are on 555, 556, 558, and 560.
And 557.
Okay.
And 557.
So, Director Pollack, in reference to 558, and I guess 557 too, and redistribution of American Rescue Plan dollars, $2 million of ARPA money came in to rehab public safety facilities. And one of those was to be the Southside substation here at 18th and Mary. There was $1 million that was allocated for that. And I've begun to get a number of questions about, maybe stagnation is too strong a word, but perhaps maybe a hiccup that we might have hit in the restoration and the reopening of the Zone 3 substation. Are you able to speak to that here? If not prepared, I mean, we can certainly go into a deeper dive, if it's easier for you to do that at another time. But it came up a number of times at yesterday's planning forum meeting, and I've received any number of calls from constituents that are concerned that the project has come to a halt. Are you able to speak to that today?
I am, Councilman. You're correct that $2 million are included in the allocation plan for community public safety facilities. You'll see that under the city operating portion of the allocation plan based on the size of the projects and the fact that the work is being done in-house. Renovation work has occurred at the former Zone 3 facility on 18th Street to repair the roof and make other necessary structural repairs that would allow the facility to be utilized again in the future. The current status of that work is not structural, but programming work within the Department of Public Safety to determine how best to utilize the site as part of overall public safety operations in Zone 3. There are some unresolvable structural components to the building that preclude some types of activities like detention there. But generally speaking, the work to repair damage to the facility either has been done or is ongoing. So the current discussion is about the best appropriate utilization.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a timeline by which we might expect the facility to be operational, or once we've just determined its best use?
I don't have that for you.
Okay. So you can imagine, in light of, there's been probably no higher public safety conversation taking place citywide other than what has been taking place in the South Side, not just this summer, but for decades now. And it does not give constituency comfort to hear that we don't have either a stronger timeline as to when we might expect that to be operational. And I'm not one to argue that brick and mortar drive public safety by any means. I believe it's equipment and training and manpower, womanpower, cameras, those kinds of things that really drive public safety. But the idea of having a steady police presence in the South Side area, I think at this point in time is as important as it has ever been. And so I strongly want to advocate for the continuation of the project, and perhaps you'd be willing, or maybe it is Chief Frank, I'm not sure, maybe you can help me to understand who might be able to provide me with the best accounting of where we are and where we expect to be and what kind of a timeline that might be. I do understand that there are all kinds of complications, and I've been aware of this for the entirety of my time in office. There are always complications once we take somebody into custody, and I understand why there are reservations for us to take people into custody, and the complications that provides to the city in terms of litigation and liability. And so I'm not insensitive to that. I do understand and appreciate that. But my highest hope for the reuse of that has been that it can be used to process someone offense in a very timely manner, and that it can also almost be used as a night court, if you will, that we can, again, process every offense in a quickly and timely manner. The idea is really to show consequence for behavior, and to do it as quickly as we can. In yesterday's planning forum meeting, the idea of curfew came up any number of times, and it was discussed the complexities of curfew, what that means, how to process, where they go, how to detain, the liability of detaining, all those kinds of things. They come into play, and so I offer up that I understand the complexities of that as well, but we have to come to an understanding or an agreement within ourselves as to how we are going to handle summary offense and what's the best way to process that in a timely and effective manner as to be able to show consequence for behavior.
Agreed, Councilman, and I think the exact considerations that you just articulated are precisely the ones that we're taking into account presently in determining how a physical facility interrelates with the needs to address those issues and to make sure that use is appropriate and maximizes effectiveness for the Bureau of Police. I'll just note, because you mentioned consistent presence. Facility, even now with the facility not presently occupied, police presence on Carson Street it has been significant, not just from the Bureau of Police, but also from our county and state partners, to whom we're very grateful for their assistance when necessary. And we believe that as the process of determining how best to use a facility to supplement that is ongoing, that we remain adequately tactically positioned to ensure public safety.
Yeah, I know. I understand fully the difficulties of staffing police at the numbers that are necessary to deal with the kinds of crowds that are being intentionally brought in to the south side of any number of businesses. So I'm not devoid of understanding of how complex and difficult that can be. So I'm going to take the opportunity to once again to argue. One of the things about yesterday's meeting at the planning forum that brought me great concern was a continued focus on policing once things become problematic. And if there's anything that I've learned in the 15, soon to be 16 years that I've been here on council, and the professionals that I've been privy to work with, is that we plan for success or we police failure. And the idea is not about bringing police officers in to quiet situations that have already been allowed to take root. It's about not allowing those situations to occur to begin with. And that is clearly a partnership between those businesses that choose to invite a disruptive customer to the street, and city officials, elected officials, all of us, and public safety officials as well, to ensure that those kinds of things don't happen to begin with. And then we will begin to see the reduction of a need for police, because we will have already planned for success and will not be struggling to understand how we can police failure.
Once again, I agree with your point, Councilman, that a proactive approach is of course preferred, and it's our intention to continue to be as proactive as possible and to update our strategies accordingly to ensure safety on Carson Street and throughout the city.
Yeah. And I should take this opportunity to acknowledge the administration, to acknowledge you, and to acknowledge Mayor Gainey for the swift action that was taken when we realized the kinds of businesses that were the kinds of customers, I should say, that were being intentionally invited, contracted, and promoted within Skybar. And the repercussions that had. And I know our conversation, you and I, the conversation I was able to have with the mayor, and the swift intervention of Mayor Gainey and the district attorney's office helped to bring that to a successful conclusion. And I spoke with the mayor yesterday purposefully to thank him personally for his intervention. I've not had the opportunity to do that with you, but what was able to take place with the shuttering of Foxtail and Skybar for the foreseeable future is directly related to the communications that we were able to have, and the communications you were able to have with Mayor Gainey, the district attorney's office, the owner, Adam DeSimone, of that establishment, and to bring that to at least for this moment in time, a successful conclusion that brought consequence for behavior. And so I personally would like to publicly recognize you. I have been able to do that with Mayor Kennedy, but I want to thank you as well for your swift action and intervention and your always your willingness to interact with me at a moment's notice when these kinds of things come up. So I thank you very much, Director, for your help in that.
Thank you very much, Councilman. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman.
That's all I have. No, I'm sorry. I do have one more question. In relationship to substations and the possible positive effect that they have, I don't expect you to be able to provide this information now, but at a later time perhaps, can we show definitively that there has been a reduction in miscreant behaviors and their impact with the launching of the substation down by Market Square? Now that that's probably been up maybe 3 years or so now, is there a way to sort of track successes that we might have had? It's been quite some time since we've heard of disruptive behavior or damaging behavior taking place downtown, and I'd just be curious to know if we can find a connection between that substation and a reduction in miscreant behavior.
It's a complicated question to answer only because so much of that period also overlapped with COVID. And so I don't know that we have the necessary data to draw clear and definitive conclusions. However, we are continuing to work on a consistent improvement in the utilization of facilities downtown. And so we remain committed to that work. But I can't give you, unfortunately, a clear data picture of that given the ways in which occupancy downtown has fluctuated in light of COVID.
Yeah, understood, Director. Thank you as always. I appreciate your professionalism always. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe I have
Yeah.
President Smith and Councilwoman Strasburger.
Yeah, just real briefly, I think Councilwoman Gross said everything that I wanted to say, and we have an executive session in 20 minutes if we can get through this agenda. So I'll try to be really quick and not ask even for a response today, but just the conversation that we're moving a lot of money to the URA. And I think I'm glad to see a lot going into the housing, and especially some of the issues Councilwoman Gross and I have been discussing, but also Councilman Coghill and I have been discussing the need for demolition in our districts. And I think I would like to see some more of that funding go in toward demolition, because we have homes that have been abandoned and vacant for over 40 years, and people are living next to that filth and that blight. And I think when we're talking about reinventing neighborhoods in downtown, we can't forget that we have existing neighborhoods with housing that need help. So I just want to make sure I put that out there. And then I would like to also say that with adding $75 million in addition to what we've already done with the URA, I know that we have one board member from City Council on there, but I think giving this kind of money, we should probably reconsider and having at least a second one. And I just want to put that out there.
If I could just clarify, and I'm not sure. Just to be clear, it is a total of actually slightly less than 75 now. This resolution does not increase the bottom line number that's going to the URA. It actually reduces it $2 million as compared to the previous allocation.
Okay, let's reduce it $2 more million, put it towards demo, and then let's add somebody from City Council on the board for another person. Thank you.
Second that.
Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Pollack, for all your due diligence and for answering our questions so thoroughly today. I want to focus first on, just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, the way that you and I had talked about it when you briefed me on this prior to today was the energy efficiency program being reduced to then be able to help with a number of things, including the downtown office space conversion, which I'm in full support of that project. Am I looking at it correctly on the line item that is the one that is the housing homeownership utilities program going from 10 million to 4 million? Is that the right one, or is that one being zeroed out? Is it a different one?
No, the homeownership utilities program is being reduced from 10 million to 4 million, a portion of which is being shifted to, as we talked about, the downtown conversion program. Other funds there are supporting the preservation line item, which is related to the preservation line item is a way to support preservation of existing homes, including repairs that are associated with the uses outlined for the utility permit. That's so
Sure.
some of that transfer is meant to just more accurately capture, for the purposes of our federal compliance, the ways in which the funding was intended to be utilized initially by moving it into different accounting line items.
Sure. So
And
just
the
so I'm
URA folks could probably speak a little bit more to the program design there if you'd like.
Happy to, yeah. Just make sure I'm understanding and that everyone is homeownership utilities program equals energy efficient, what was intended
Yes,
to be
that's right.
energy efficiency.
That's right.
Programs through grants or through it. So maybe for the URA representatives we have here today, you can answer, is the $4 million that's left in that bucket still going to be dedicated solely to what I understand to be kind of, we have a home repair program. There's so many programs and I lose track of what we can do with what. Is that still going to be focused on either grants or allocations that focus on energy efficiency, or is that energy efficiency part of this program dormant for now? Or are we dropping that off in favor of other things?
I think Derek Kendall Morris is on the line and can answer questions about the energy, what is sometimes referred to as the Energy Equity Fund, as well as the Homeownership Utility Program. Derek.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. My name is Derek Kendall Morris, manager of consumer lending at the Urban Redevelopment Authority. To answer your question, Councilperson, yes, the remaining $4 million will be for energy efficiency grants for homeowners.
Great, thank you. That's what I was wondering. So we'll still have $4 million for that. I would love to grow that in future years. Again, I know there are so many priorities, but given the climate action plan that we have, given the climate crisis we have, energy efficiency of our old building stock and home stock is just such an easy way that pays dividends in the future and helps for so many different reasons. So wanted to boost that. But, we have 9 different council members and lots of different URA members and lots of different priorities. So I understand the needs for every different priority. The second thing was the Bridge Asset Management Program Trust Fund. I understand that today's action is to establish that and not to transfer funds. Do you have, or have I missed, and somehow missed in the conversation here, the dollar amount that's expected to be transferred in?
So brief clarification, the 556 is where the line item for that fund is created, and it's $2.5 million.
$5 million.
A separate item 560 would create the trust fund. Between those two actions, those funds can be transferred from the ARPA trust fund to the Bridge Asset Maintenance Fund. There is a later paper awarding a contract based on a competitive proposal to WSP Group, which is an international engineering firm, to conduct the first phase of that assessment for a not to exceed amount of $1.5 million. That would leave an additional $1 million in the trust fund for future distribution as that first phase of work uncovers additional scope of work that would be necessary at a future date.
Sure. Thank you for the clarification. This is where, you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face. I understand the need for a full professionalized assessment and, almost ordered list of priorities of our bridges, given the state of disrepair that some of them are in. That said, I also acknowledge that we probably know, with our own expertise and the assessments that have been done previously, the top 10 that need to be done immediately. And part of me wishes we could just put the $2 million into the most pressing, bridges and, and contracts and just continue to get those done now. So I'm a little bit torn on this one, but you're welcome to speak to it. I just wanted to kind of express the fact that I'm ambivalent about this particular line item and this transfer because of the severe need that we have for so many bridges right now and what we do know currently about our bridges.
So I think you're correct about the fact that we have significant knowledge of which bridges are in need of repair, and many of those projects are already ongoing. The real purpose here is to modernize it's not just to get a snapshot in time picture of the needed investments, although that is a part of the work. It's actually to modernize our systems for tracking this long term deploying connections to the asset management systems that PennDOT utilizes, which will expedite our contracting process in the future when utilizing TIP dollars and other federal dollars, in particular Infrastructure Act dollars that are headed, to the states soon. So this is a preparatory action to maximize our ability to utilize additional outside funding as quickly and effectively as possible as those dollars arrive. So it's really, I would think of it less as an assessment of current conditions. That's really just a sub part of it. It's really building the systems necessary to manage what will be potentially an unprecedentedly large amount of infrastructure funding into the future.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Very much. Councilman Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's get my bearings here. Okay. So, Director, the bill where it is the 70, well, was 75, now it's roughly 73 in this bill. 57. In the future, I think, just like when these funds were initially thought of, we broke it down, we met with leadership on that. So I think I'd appreciate just a briefing in the future on situations like this, because, for instance, $4 million housing development of affordable units through PHDC.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so that's an example, like what I mentioned earlier. Nothing is actually changing in the programmatic design. The line items are simply, we took what was one $21 million line item that was labeled Own PGH, that had always been intended to include a combination of development of new for-sale units, education and counseling for first-time home buyers, and other for-sale home ownership supports, and split it into 3 different line items for accounting purposes. So if you look at housing for sale home ownership at a total of $15,625,000, and then 2 new line items below that, $4 million for PHDC and $1.3 million for education and counseling. Those 3 items had previously been rolled up in one $21 million line item. The total funding for that work has not changed. It's simply been distributed across 3 line items.
Where does the definition of what was previously, in the line item for 21 million, where does that lie? Like, how did you know that? Where is the?
I'm looking at Exhibit A. You might be looking at the bill, but Exhibit A attached to Bill 556 is a spreadsheet that shows the allocation plan, and it's annotated to describe this. So it might be harder.
So that
to
is
see.
available to the public.
It's available to the public, to members, to everyone. Yeah, it is Exhibit A attached to Bill 556. So if you're looking at Bill 557, which is the adjustment to the resolution, that's a follow-on action to what's done in 556. 556 is where the meat of the changes are accomplished and documented.
Thank you. What's housing preservation?
As it sounds, preservation of existing affordable units, as opposed to the creation of new affordable units.
Is that in the spreadsheet too?
Yes.
Okay. So that was intended in the housing ownership utilities. Okay. So you're just breaking it down. So what's the purpose of that?
The purpose of breaking it down more granularly than was in the original plan is to make it easier, or to make it more transparent, in particular in the way we report these various expenditures to the U.S. Treasury Department, as we're obligated to under their regulations that were promulgated in December. Again, I think the original plan was intentionally ambiguous on some of these points, simply because we did not know at that time how we would have to document it for compliance purposes. So when I said that much of what's changed here is an accounting cleanup action and not a transfer of funds, that's what I was referring to. We're simply changing the way things are labeled and itemized to ensure that the original intent can be appropriately documented for Treasury purposes.
Okay. And then moving the bill 560.
Yes.
The bridge asset management. You say you've taken the funds that were allocated to the one PGH.
Yes.
And put them in here. Where where do I see that? I only see a trust fund that's being created.
So again, the movement of the funds from one PGH to, instead of Bridge Asset Management Program, is inside Bill 556, and it's again in the same spreadsheet. Once those funds have been moved in the allocation plan, we still need a separate resolution
Okay, so you were
to
just
create the
saying,
trust
okay,
fund.
I
Yeah.
got you.
So the two, again, the two, and really, 556.
So there, in the future, there'll be a bill that, okay.
556 is where all of the financial changes occur. 555, 557, 558, and 560 are all associated actions necessary to implement those changes. So the comprehensive view of what is changing is all within 556.
What's the amount again?
For the trust fund?
Yeah.
$2.5 million.
So that's going into, what are we going to do with that money?
$1.5 million, if council affirmatively adopts a later paper, will be the not-to-exceed amount for a contract with WSP Group, an international engineering firm, to conduct the assessment. There would be at least $1 million remaining in the trust fund for further allocation down the line as that work progresses. Again, I say that's the not-to-exceed amount. We have not yet, because we don't have council authorization, executed a contract, so we're hopeful it'll come in a little below.
So what are we gonna find out that I think Councilperson Strasburg was one of this, or alluded to what we already know. So I just want to dive a little deeper on that. So what are we going to find out with that?
Part of the engagement is improved assessment. As I mentioned, that's not the primary purpose. Part of the engagement is the construction of a comprehensive multi-year capital plan to address bridge maintenance. Part of the assessment is building the necessary systems and infrastructure to manage a large-scale capital program for bridges more effectively, in particular, knowing that significant amounts of federal infrastructure aid are on their way to states and municipalities, so being able to process that money effectively is part of that assessment. And then a final portion is seeking recommendations from this firm on how to resume what the city had prior to Act 47, which was an in-house staffing unit, I don't know, division, whatever you want to call it, doing proactive bridge maintenance on an operating basis rather than a capital basis. Since Act 47, we've effectively handled all bridge work through the capital budget, meaning we let things deteriorate to the point where there's enough work to do a capital project and then authorize a capital project to fix it. We want to get back to the practice of doing routine maintenance on bridges, and so having recommendations on how to structure that, tapping the expertise of folks who do a lot of PennDOT work where that's part of their plan is part of what we'll be getting here.
So wondering what, the alternative would be to hire the engineers with 1.5 million. I mean, we could hire the engineers in-house to do this. I'm just wondering why we would take that approach.
We could, but we would, to utilize ARPA funds for that would then clock out when those positions are funded. And we also need this assessment really to know exactly what types of engineering skills we need and the appropriate ratios of those, right? So I think this engagement will equip us with the tools to make those decisions ahead of the 2023 budget. The preliminary report on this work will be due in October, so it'll be done in time for us to have more informed discussions.
Did this go through with this firm an RFP process?
Yes, they were the selected vendor of multiple firms that responded.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Second round, Councilman Coghill, followed by Councilwoman Gross.
Yes.
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 So,
Same set.
thank you, Mr. Chair. For the sake of time, since we have the URA online, yeah, we're still rolling on the same stuff here. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to make comments, and if the URA can, maybe get back to me at a later date. I don't want to, get into the weeds here. First and foremost, I want to say to Madam President's comments about demolition, absolutely. We absolutely need more money in demolition. I have buildings falling down that are unsafe, like rotten teeth. There is no saving them, certain ones. They need to be removed. I've got one I've been waiting for 2 years on, and I just can't believe we got all this money we're throwing around, and I'm like, let's get these buildings out of here, please. So I got 4 or 5 I'll discuss with you later. The other thing was, I'm very interested in the co-op that Madam President and Councilwoman Gross had spoke to, specifically for one site. And she enthusiastically came to this site, Councilwoman Gross. And, and I don't have a lot of affordable housing. And I don't have the need, I feel, at this point, for a lot of affordable housing in my district. But this specific site begs for it. I think it's ideal. I look forward to learning more about the co-op, and I'm in talks with the both of these, Madam President and Councilwoman Gross on that. So I look to pursue that. I think it's a great idea. And it could be a pilot program, and let's see how it works. We have 40 units there, and I don't see any better place than we could start by trying. But on top of that, what I'd really like to see from a business point of view, and I've spoken to Mr. Geiger about this many a times, is same project I'll use as an example, Berg Place, 40 units, completely needs renovated, is if we're going to be serious about affordable housing in the future, instead of bickering with, and not to demean the great work that some members at this table have done in, holding developers' feet to the fire and making sure they get 10% or, as many affordable units as we can get. But I feel like we're in a position to, purchase the property, renovate the property, and rent the property. And then we keep it as an asset. Instead of costing us millions of dollars going back and forth with a developer, why can't we be the landlords? And, and we could always make it affordable without going back and forth with developers. So, and then again, we have the asset. So, we're not giving up this property. And we could make sure that it's, everything's in line and we don't have to bicker with developers. And just my thought. I mean, if we're serious about affordable housing, I feel like we should take matters in our own hands, buy, sell, and rent the places by ourselves.
Maybe start a redevelopment.
That's it. I don't want any remarks on it, please. I'm ready to move on myself. So I just would like the URA or anybody with the URA to follow up with me on some of those questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, you said you didn't want to comment, but you'd have all types of insurance and liability issues that would be the city would be faced if we took that approach. And what I'll also simply say is, in terms of demo, I've advocated for years now that it's not necessarily demo. Yes, I understand the concerns, but what we really need are more flexible dollars for stabilization efforts, to fix dormers, to fix those sort of things so they don't get to the demo. Because once you tear it down, we have a poor practice of demo. Then you have the expense of digging it back out of the ground once you want to do the home. It's cheaper to go in and renovate. However, when I tried to do it before, I tried to use CDBG dollars, but because you can't guarantee the end user that would be eligible for CDBG, it became a legal challenge to do it. But in the sake of time, we won't debate it now. But
if I can just respond to that quickly. The structures I'm speaking of are not you're not going to renovate them. Nobody's going to renovate them. You need to be removed. Okay, these are unsafe and deplorable condition. As a contractor, I know I could see it from the outside. Nobody's saving this place, and it would cost an extraordinary amount of money just to renovate the place. Going back to liability issues with URA and whatever they are, we could overcome that. We own properties all over the city of Pittsburgh as we speak, I know. To be a landlord, if there's additional responsibilities of managing properties, I get it. But, again, I just feel like we're throwing money away when we're putting URA money into major projects for developers, stabilizing them. And, they're coming in and putting 10% affordability there when we could do it 100%. That's all. Thanks.
Councilwoman Gross?
Yes. My first comment is just in response to the upcoming bill that hopefully we'll eventually get to about hiring the consulting firm for the engineering assessment on bridges. Well, I'm also very eager for us to hire more engineering capacity in-house, and I'm absolutely supportive of adding capacity that we did used to have in the city. And that we lost under austerity in Act 47, as Director Pollack mentioned. We have a lot of bridges, and I can't actually name how many, embarrassingly. How many bridges do we have?
It's over 400.
So 400, even if we did hire our own engineers in-house right now, it would just take too long, basically. It would take years, probably, to do assessments on all the bridges. So let's do both, right? Let's do this contract. Let's get good, engineering analyses of our own instead of relying on someone else to get around to it, and then get started. So thank you. That's all. I wanted to say that. And I'm also thank you for, I wanted to talk more about housing stabilization too, as you were talking about. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bills.
Thank you.
That takes us back to Bill 559.
Bill 559, resolution further amending Resolution Number 886 entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2022 Capital Budget, the 2022 CDBG Grant Program, and the 2022 through 2027 Capital Improvement Program by adjusting various line items funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve. I don't know whose committee this is. I'm
Second.
just looking to move it on.
We're still under my committee.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Oh,
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Thank you, Director Pollock, for being here with us
Thank you for
today.
everything, Director.
Bill 561.
Bill 561, resolution providing for the sale of certain property acquired by the city at the Pittsburgh tax sale,
Would you let
item
me
A,
stay?
2108 Mazette Place.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, whose committee is this?
Any discussion?
I just
Seeing
want
none-
to thank really quickly the person who's purchasing this. She's waited years to get this one, Keisha Kennedy. So thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 562.
Bill 562, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Finance to enter into an agreement with the Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group for the purpose of providing an annual analysis of community reinvestment of possible city depositories and other associated work associated with the RFPs for the city depository analysis. Total cost not to exceed $75,000 over 3 years.
Motion to approve with discussion. I intend to either hold or table. Director.
Second.
Need a second. Thank you. Discussion, Council President?
Yes, Director. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hi, Jennifer Gould. I'm the acting director of the Department of Finance. So we actually use an outside company to do evaluations of all the community reinvestment information that's required that the prospective depositories submit to us as part of the RFP process.
So
We do an evaluation and then present it to Community Reinvestment Committee, composed of, some members of council or their representatives, the controller's office and such, and gives us guidance on how to award monies to depositories or take monies away, depend of current depositories, based on their performance with community reinvestment.
Director, thank you. I do know what this does, and I know what this is, but I have a concern that PCRG is the recipient. I think that how many applicants, how many people replied?
None, just them.
None. And where did you, how did you circulate this, and how was this put out in the community that you were even looking for somebody to do this? And how many people in the city of Pittsburgh are capable of doing this type of review?
Well, we did actually post it through the regular RFP process online using OpenGov with ONB. We have done that same procedure, the past 3 or 4 times that we've done this. I believe they might be really the only qualified people in the city to actually do this. I think in the few times that we've actually, issued that RFP, we've maybe only had 1 or 2 other respondents. So it's, pretty specialized, and there really aren't a lot of qualified candidates.
Yeah, I don't know that how you consider them qualified. I'd like to have a little further conversation about the organization. I can just tell you my experience with them, and the West End has been very different than what's been here in the city. But giving a $75,000 grant to an organization, I know when they were in my district, they were supposed to be part of stopping the mortgage foreclosure crisis in our area, and did not. They were to hire somebody from our community, did not. They told me that the female that I had intended to apply for the job, that she was not qualified. She was a black female in law school, almost done with her degree, but they hired somebody from Friendship instead to come do the job, and needed her help to get into the homes because people weren't opening the doors, so they asked her to volunteer. So I can tell you I have a lot of not positive history with PCRG, particularly in my communities of color. And so I will just say it has not been good in the past. I don't know what they've done in the future or what they've done over the years to change that. I know we were going to have some conversations. We were going to have some meetings. They also never happened. So I can't say that I have full confidence in them making any types of decision with this. So I think that I'm going to make a motion to hold, and we can discuss it over the weekend, what City Council wants to do.
Second.
Thank you. Pardon me? Just till next to our
Is
final
there
week.
any discussion on the motion to hold? You didn't say for how long.
Yeah. How long can I hold it for?
Well, if you
what
hold
is-
it a week, we'll deal with it when we get back off of recess.
Recess, right.
Okay, so when we return from recess.
Just say 1 week.
So,
1 week.
Thanks.
okay, any discussion on the motion to hold for 1 week? I'll chime in. I will simply say, regardless of how you view PCRG, they were in part created to actually do this sort of review. That's how the organization was literally created, to do this sort of a review. So we'll discuss.
Oh,
but
believe me, we'll discuss because I have a lot of concerns about this one.
That's fine. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill will be held 1 week.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to register aye votes for all remaining bills. I have a meeting after.
No, you can't do that. I'm joking with you.
I was counting. I thought maybe there wasn't enough.
So noted.
All right, that
I know
moves
we're
us
all in this
on to
together.
Bill 563.
Bill 563, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an agreement or agreements with MAS Financial Advisory Services LLC and Davenport Company LLC for the purpose of providing municipal advisory services to the city over a 3-year period with an option for 2 additional years.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Bruce, we're going to assume Bruce is still online. All those in favor say aye.
We're
Any
thinking.
opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 564.
Bill
Thank you,
564, resolution authorizing an interdepartmental transfer in the amount of $40,000 from the Bureaus of Administration and Animal Care and Control in the Department of Public Safety to the Bureau of Police. This transfer is necessary to assist the Bureau of Police with unanticipated funding needs for their imaging project that need to be completed by the end of 2022.
Motion to approve. Discussion.
Need a second?
Yeah, y'all got it.
Discussion, Councilman Wilson?
This is 564, right?
Yes.
I didn't open the bill. Can someone briefly tell me what this is? This Bureaus of Animal Care and Control. So, yeah, what is this? What does this do for animal control?
Mr. Showers is with us. I believe he can address it.
Good afternoon, Council. Charles Showers, Department of Business Administrator for Public Safety. And this bill is actually a companion bill to 569, which is the EDOCS imaging
I can't.
project.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you repeat?
This is a companion bill to Bill 569, which is the EDOCS imaging project. This is one of the many software projects to get us off of the D3 tool set. However, because there have been so many projects that we need to get started with before the end of the year, we need to just find some additional funding. This project doesn't actually do anything for animal control. It actually is a transfer of funds within the public safety bureaus. There was an overage in another project.
Okay. Okay, it's a transfer to police. What are the police going to do with it?
Oh, it is, like I said, it's part of the E3 project. This or getting off of E3 projects, I should say. I believe some of our other, I may have some colleagues from IMP who can discuss this in
Can you do me a
more
favor?
detail as well.
For some reason, I can't hear what you're saying. Can you just email me whatever is going on with this money?
Sure.
All right, thanks.
I have Director Schmidt as well.
I can speak to the project.
I think it's like your computer. I mean, no offense to you. I'm just saying. I think.
Innovation and Performance. Can you hear me?
Yeah, like no offense to you.
Please don't answer unless you're called upon. Please, Mr. Chair.
So, just to clarify for Councilman Wilson, this bill 564 is related to Bill 569. It's part of the money that's being moved to support this eDocs Technologies platform.
Okay, so we're just not there yet.
So that's all I can really tell you.
569.
Correct.
So, hold on. So, is there any further? Hold on, Ms. Moore. Any further discussion?
Okay.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 565 and 566 can be read. Both need executive sessions.
Bill 565, resolution amending 289, which authorized the mayor and the city solicitor to enter into a professional services agreement with Block and Associates LLC for services related to an employment-related matter by increasing the total spend by $10,200 for a new not-to-exceed amount of $20,000. Bill number 566, resolution authorizing the mayor and the city solicitor to enter into a professional services agreement with Fisher Phillips 6 PPG Place for legal services in connection with collective bargaining in an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Motion to hold for executive session on both bills.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Both bills will be held for executive session. Need a motion to approve.
Do we have to, excuse me, do we have to say why, or is it clear? Because we just talked about how we have to, do we have to say why we're holding for executive session?
No.
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
I would say that, I mean, in light of the reading case that was by the Commonwealth Court, that you could just say this.
Patterson, employment.
Yeah. We're good. We need a motion
We'll
to.
talk about it in the meeting.
Need a motion to approve the invoices.
So moved.
So second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Invoices are approved. Need a motion to approve the interdepartmental transfers.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Transfers are approved. Need a motion to approve the P cards.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
And we, inside of P cards, need a motion to waive our rules so that so state permitting fee for PLI can be approved.
Motion to waive the rules.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The rules have been waived, so all those in favor of P cards say aye.
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 Any opposed? P cards are approved. Thank you. That takes us to Public Safety Services Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Smith. Our one supplemental paper is Bill 602.
Bill 602, resolution amending Resolution 176, entitled Resolution Authorizing the Mayor and Director of the Department of Public Safety to execute relevant grant agreements to receive funding from Allegheny County Health Department to develop a public health informed diversion program, and further providing for expenditures under the terms of said agreement to correct the amount authorized by the grant agreement or agreements and the authorized for expenditures.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none?
Yeah.
Discussion, Councilman Wilson?
So we're receiving money from Allegheny Health Network for diversion program. Who can answer questions to what's going on here?
Laura Dragowski, is she with us?
Allegheny Health Department. Public Informed Diversion Program.
We can leave this open if you would like,
We'll get
Councilman,
Laura.
and see if we can have, Laura's can answer the question.
Okay, we can keep going until.
Okay, so we'll leave Bill 602 open on the table. That moves us to Public Works Committee, chaired by Councilman Coghill. First supplemental paper is Bill 582.
Bill 582, resolution providing for an agreement with Swank Construction Company, LLC, for the construction phase of the 30th Street Bridge Preservation Project and providing for the payment of costs not to exceed $1,950,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 583.
Bill 583, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Works on behalf of the city to enter into an agreement with the Board of Public Education of the School District of Pittsburgh for the Board of Public Education of the School District of Pittsburgh to grant to the city, its successors, and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at the city's own cost and expense a ball playing field to be located on the grounds of Pittsburgh Phasion K-5 School, 7430 Toga Street in the 13th Ward.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 584.
Bill 584, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Works on behalf of the city to enter into an agreement with the Southside Community Council, the city to grant to the Southside Community Council its successors and assigns the privilege license to improve and maintain Esser Palace, located at 1200 East Carson Street in the 17th Ward.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any
Very
dis-
brief discussion, please.
Discussion, Councilman Kraus?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just sincere kudos out to the Southside Community Council for all of the efforts and the work that they have done within Esser Plaza. It's, for those of you that might not be aware, it's at 12th and East Carson. And it's an amazing public space, and the Southside Community Council and Friends of Esser Plaza have really taken that the role and that responsibility on themselves to do great improvements, not just physically, but to raise the kinds of dollars that are necessary to make the kinds of improvements that they want to see. And it's all been under the leadership of Southside Community Council and the Friends of Esser Plaza. So just want to give a shout out for all they're doing, and I'm over the top happy to vote this through. And thank you, members, for the same.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 596.
Bill 596, resolution approving the recommendation made by the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure that the contract portion of the Old Oak Drive location to Banksville be paved with asphalt in accordance with Section 41706 of the Code of Ordinances.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 537.
Bill 537, resolution amending resolution number 224, which authorized the mayor and director of the Department of Public Works to enter into an agreement between the city and Sasha Ressin for the creation and installation of public art at Arsenal Park by authorizing the agreement to be made with Mango Tava Inc. on behalf of the artists.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 538.
Bill 538, resolution amending resolution 515, which authorized the mayor and director of the Office of Management and Budget on behalf of the city to execute an amended professional services agreement with Rig Pacific Company for the manufacturing and distribution for recycling containers and provision of containers at a cost not to exceed $2,654,800.
Motion to approve. Brief discussion.
Second.
Is somebody on the phone that can, or somebody online here? I just want to know, is this, of course, for the recycling bins? Director Hornstein, I see you. Part of the city, my part of the city, did not get them yet, but this is the total cost for all of them across the city. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And distribution-wise, are we 80% filled? My neighborhood has not gotten them
We
yet.
get them in
but
September.
Where are we on that?
Yes, this is part of that. So, we need to execute this amendment so that we can, flush out the remaining order.
Okay, let's go.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 540.
Bill 540, resolution authorizing the mayor and the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to apply for a grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Economic Development's Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program to provide funding for the Green Boulevard project The grant proposal includes an ask of $250,000 with a local match, $374,324.43, for a total cost of $624,324.43.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 541.
Bill 541, resolution providing for an agreement with the SAI Consultant Engineers, Inc. for costs associated with the CBD Signals Phase 4 project, providing for the payment of costs not to exceed $524,739.33.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 542.
Bill 542, resolution authorizing the Director of the Department of Finance and the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure on behalf of the city to enter into certain temporary construction easements in order to advance the El Paso Street Landside Project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 543.
Bill 543, resolution authorizing the mayor and the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to apply for a grant from the Redevelopment Authority of Allegheny County's Trail Development Fund for the construction of the West End Trolley Trail in an amount of $1,538,784.
Motion to approve.
Second brief discussion. I just want to thank the administration for continuing this worthwhile project, and thank you, Councilman, for chairing this all.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 544.
Bill 544, a resolution providing for a supplemental agreement for professional engineering design services with Trans Associates Engineering Consultant, Inc. for the Penn Avenue Phase 2 reconstruction project at a cost not to exceed $1,564,366.45, an increase of $831,739.84 from the previously executed agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 545.
Bill 545, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure on behalf of the city to enter into a professional services agreement with WSP Global, Inc. and or its subsidiaries WSP USA for a period of 2 years for management services in conjunction with a comprehensive bridge asset management program at an amount not to exceed $1,500,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 546.
Bill 546, resolution authorizing acceptance by the city of the dedication of Station Street, located in the Larimore Phase 2 plan of lots as recorded in the Allegheny County Department of Real Estate in Plan Book Volume 294, page 31 in the 11th Ward, 9th Council District.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That moves us to Human Resources Committee, chaired by Councilman Kraus. One new paper, Bill 554.
Bill 554, resolution providing that the city enter into a professional services agreement and or contract with UPMC Mercy in connection with the administration and evaluation of medical examinations and related tests and procedures for the Civil Service Commission's medical examination program for current and prospective employees for employment and promotion, and providing for the payment of costs not to exceed $1,200,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I thought Councilman Cross
Any
was going.
discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That takes us to Land Use and Economic Development Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Wilson. One supplemental paper, Bill 591.
Bill 591, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of permits, licenses, and inspection on behalf of the city for the issuing of a warrant in favor of Norelco Corporation for producing a structural demolition plan for 209 First Avenue at a cost not to exceed $10,550.
Motion to approve.
Discussion, Councilman
Real
Coghill?
briefly, is this what we spoke of
Yeah,
yesterday?
that's what we
Okay,
spoke
good enough, that's all, thanks, yep.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 270.
Bill 270, ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh Code Title 7 Business Licenses, Article 7 Business Licenses by creating a new Chapter 768.
Motion, what?
Sorry, I was going to see if you wanted 465 read with it.
Yes.
Bill 465, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code Title 5 Traffic, Article 7 Parking, Chapter 549 Residential Parking Permit Program 54908 Visitors Permits, Non-Residents Permits, so as to relate the issuance of residential parking permits for short-term rentals to the issuance of licenses by the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspection, authorizing the operation of a short-term rentals in the city.
Motion to hold both bills 270 and 465 until August 24th, which is our next standing committee.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I just have a little brief discussion. I just want to make sure we get this passed, and I want to thank Councilman Wilson and Councilwoman Gross for working together on this. I know Councilwoman Gross is taking the portion for the zoning, and Councilman Wilson is taking this portion, but I do want to make sure that we add in here, and I think Councilman Gross articulated that in the meeting, that I want to add in that we have, that you have to at least own one of the properties to have rentals, and that there was one other piece. What was it? Yeah, you have to live in one of the properties, and then there was there was one other piece, but I just want to make sure that I say publicly that she and I spoke, and so I'd like to work with you on those amendments, Councilman. Okay. I
Thank
just have
you.
to give you some additional stuff.
All bills will be held until August 24th. I'll simply add, me and Councilman Wilson had a similar conversation where I understood that he didn't necessarily want to add those amendments into these bills. I'm
going to add those amendments into my bill, original bill. So I will say that they will be in one way or the other.
I agree with the amendment.
Okay.
I was simply saying when we had our conversation, it was let's get this passed and then do that separately. But if you want to lump it all together, I'm fine with
Is that what you wanted to do, Councilman? Separately? I don't want to have the whole conversation. We'll have a conversation, the three of us. Yeah, four of us.
Bill 411.
Bill 411, resolution providing for the designation as a historic structure under Title 11 of the Code of Ordinances to certain site known as the Troy Hill Firehouse, located at 1800 Lay Street in the Troy Hill in the 24th Ward.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Our new paper, Bill 570.
Bill 570, resolution authorizing payment for the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspection by method of P-card to the International Accreditation Services, Inc. for accreditation under its Building Department Accreditation Program.
Motion to approve. Discussion.
Second.
Discussion, Councilman?
Is there someone online that can explain the bill?
I'm here, council members.
Councilman Wilson wanted to know if you could simply explain the bill.
Sure, certainly. Sarah Kincher, Director of the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections. PLI is seeking accreditation as a building department and code enforcement agency through the International Accreditation Services Program. Accreditation is a pathway to recognize our competence as a building code officials and experts and our quality of service as a public agency. So when we look at the program requirements and the specifications of accreditation, we find that PLI meets many of the highest standards in our operations, our policies, our services, and our technical capabilities, and we believe that we would be successful in achieving accreditation.
Okay, so
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it just seems so. This is being done because, this would be instead of waiving the rules on P card, we're putting this into a resolution. Okay, great. I don't have any other questions. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Councilman Wilson, Lord Jagrowski has joined us, so we can go back to page 11 under Public Safety and take Bill 602, which is still open.
All right, thanks. Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to have a quick briefing on what this. I see it's amending it. So, is it adding additional funds or?
No, council member, thank you for giving us the opportunity to clarify this. So this actually represents a clerical error. The way that this is the third year of what will be 3 years of contracting. And the way that we've approached this is to amend the contract and the statement of work and budget with each successive year. So the number that we are authorized to contract should be growing with each new year's amount, right? So this next year would be added on to the previous authorized amount. So the amount that we had in the legislation that you all originally reviewed was putting solely what we would be getting this year and not what we would be getting in total over the 3 years. So it's not actually changing anything, it's just making it a cumulative amount.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Sorry about that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That takes us back now to Innovation Performance Asset Management Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger. We have one supplemental paper, Bill 590.
Bill 590, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Safety to enter on behalf of the city into a professional services agreement with Open Innovation Plans LLC for records management software services at a cost not to exceed $104,944.60.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. New papers, Bill 567.
Bill 567, resolution amending resolution number 65, which authorized the mayor and director of the Department of Finance to enter into a maintenance agreement with OPEX Corporation for maintenance services related to the Falcon Red document scanning workstation by adding a year of maintenance for the second machine at a cost not to exceed $10,930.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 568.
Bill 568, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Safety to enter on behalf of the city into a software maintenance agreement and amendments thereto with CI Technologies, Inc. for maintenance and user support services for subscription-based licenses for internal affairs and professional standards software to be utilized by the city's Bureau of Police and Office of Municipal Investigations at an overall cost not to exceed $34,340.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 569.
Bill 569, resolution amending resolution 593, a resolution amending an agreement with eDoc Technologies for licenses, services, and maintenance and support services to provide imaging and document management services to include police documents at an additional cost not to exceed $497,350.
Motion to approve.
Second. Just brief discussion. I just want to thank Councilwoman Strasburger. She's been doing a great job chairing this committee, and Director Norman's been doing a really good job too. So I just want to thank them both. Thank you.
Thank you. Any Councilman Wilson?
I need to ask a question about this. So is there anyone that can speak to this bill?
I should have thanked her after the end of the meeting.
It's not my fault.
Yes.
Not my fault there's so much on the agenda.
Yes. I'm Gwendolyn Moore. I'm the Assistant Director of Business Technology with Innovation and for the Department of Innovation and Performance. And these funds are for imaging for the police documents, which are currently housed in SharePoint and was developed as a custom application by B3. It was requested that we retire all of the B3 custom applications by the end of this year. In order to do that, we need to transfer all of the images to another platform, and we currently use eDocs, or I should say OnBase, as the platform with eDocs as the vendor providing these services.
Okay,
We will provide the police with all of their documents that they currently have on the SharePoint application and provide them with access to all of those documents in the future.
Thank you, Gwen. I'm just happy to hear. I just want to understand, because I know at some point there's going to be a change in how reporting is done to speed up reports that police do to save time. So, all right, thanks. I see that's not this. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That moves us to Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Gross. One deferred paper, Bill 502.
Bill 502, resolution requesting the approval of an intermunicipal transfer of a restaurant liquor license from China Palace Restaurant to the applicant Szechuan Spice, Inc. for the premises located at 5700 Center Avenue, known as Szechuan Spice Restaurant, pursuant to amended Pennsylvania Liquor Code 4461.
Motion to approve.
Second. I'm sorry.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Councilwoman Gross, are you okay with having the rest of these bills all read together?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
If Madam Clerk will please read all the remaining bills?
Bill 547, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition by seller of land between the URA and Cedarwood Homes Holding LLC for a related entity for the sale of Block 70A lots 3 and 10 and Block 70E lots 185, 241, and 375 in the 28th ward of the city. Board Heads Fording Road between Old Orchard Circle and Von Bonhurst Street, Council District Number 2. Bill number 548, resolution authorizing the URA to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in and to the following publicly owned properties in the 25th ward of the city, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County, Federal Street, south of Perrysville Avenue, Council District 6. Bill number 549, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition by seller of land between the URA and Katie Holler for the sale of blocks 50F lots 148 in the 10th ward, Council District Number 9, Rosetta Street, west of Wine Brittle Street, side yard sale. Bill number 550, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition by seller of land between the URA and Lech LLC or a related entity for the sale of block 9R lots 163, 164, 165, and 166 in the 3rd ward of the city, Cliff Street, east of Crawford Street, Council District Number 6. Bill number 551, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition by sale of land between the URA and the One Call Handles It All Landscaping Trucking LLC in the 13th ward of the city, Hale Street between Montfort Street and Alsick Street, Council District Number 9. Bill number 552, resolution authorizing the URA to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in and to the be vacated right-of-way, adjourning the publicly owned properties in the 12th ward of the city, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County, 608 Regis Way, 0 Shetland Street, 604, 610, 612, 0, and 616 Larimer Avenue, 6304 and 0 Joseph Street, 0 and 630, 6307 and 0 Rapidan Way, 119 and 0 Shetland Street, respectively, Council District Number 9. Bill number 553, resolution authorizing a corporation agreement with the URA for the performance of certain work in connection with the Penn Circle two-way conversion and providing for the payment of costs not to exceed $1 million, Council District Number 9.
Motion to approve.
Second, brief discussion.
Discussion, Madam President.
Thank you. I just want to talk about the properties in Ferrywood. I want to thank the URA for all the work that they're doing in our district in Ferrywood. But this particular project is for the housing. So a lot of people know that there's going to be a industrial side to Ferrywood, and there's going to be additional warehouse space built there. But there's a division, and then on the other side will be the residential side. And people are saying that they'd like to see affordable housing. Well, what's happening in Ferrywood is there's one housing effort where people are refurbishing existing homes, and another housing effort where we have rental places built. But the third is this project, which is affordable senior patio homes in Ferrywood. And there's actually not a lot of patio homes in the city of Pittsburgh. So this is something that the residents specifically asked for. So when you hear about the industrial, don't think that we forgot about the residential. We have not. So thank you to URA for the work.
Very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation on all remaining bills. With that, our meeting announcements. Shortly after this meeting, council will hold an executive session relative to updates on the rules of council from council's attorney regarding legal matters. Also, this afternoon at 2:30, council will hold an executive session relative to bills 518 and 519. Next week, council will hold our regular meetings on Tuesday, July 19th. Speaker registration closes at 9 a.m. Tuesday morning. To register, please fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage. You may also call the clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Council recess will begin next Wednesday, July 20th, and end Thursday, August 18th. The first council meeting after recess will be Friday, August 19th at 10 a.m. I'm assuming everyone's going to be on Zoom. Anything further? None? Need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
We are adjourned.